Hey everyone, thanks for joining us tonight for the 2021 NHL Draft Stream. I had to think really hard about what year it was. It's been one of those years, but yeah, really excited to hang out with you guys tonight. How you feeling, Ian?
This has been a wild day. Um, Personally, I'm just really happy to be able to take a break from things and just enjoy a night of hockey, talking, chatting with you, and having some fun here.
Yeah, it's already been a bit of a crazy day, which has kind of, I assume, ruined most people's prep for shows like this or anyone on TV. Not quite to the extent that the Columbus Blue Jackets did last year at the draft, but probably not super far off because just before we launched, looked like Seth Jones moved to the Chicago Blackhawks and got a huge contract earlier today. The whole Vancouver, Arizona thing, which is the amount of dollars traded in that deal is just mind boggling. What's your take on how the last week has felt as a fan?
It's been exciting. I mean, obviously, it's been exciting. We know that the team is rounding a corner, so to speak. We're always in that perpetual state of rounding the corner, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
But it does genuinely feel like the Fitzgerald is being aggressive, whether it be there's ammunition in terms of experience in the NHL, which I think it was probably biggest positives
Yeah.
from last season. Um, for,
Yeah, and he's one of those players that you just get the sense that he wasn't quite like he wasn't a sure thing for us in the lineup just because there were other young kids that maybe were higher up on the depth chart. So, but like he has the raw tools, like the physicality, the skating that a team like Colorado is going to pick him up. And you just kind of think that it's going to work out for them somehow. I Part of that might be bias that Colorado is so well run that anything they do, you assume is good.
Mhm.
You know, but the other part of it is that he's that kind of player that when he doesn't need to be the line driver, as he's kind of figuring everything out, he's just going to be a wrecking ball out there, and it's just going to work out for them. And he's super cheap, so it's the
Yeah,
perfect play for a team that's up against the
yeah,
cap.
absolutely. At his best, he's a bull in a china shop type player. I think just the rest of his game. The question there is how much is that going to catch up with him?
Yeah, but I mean, parts of it won't have to.
Hmm.
Like it's he's going to be a role player
Yeah,
in case of injury or inevitable suspension, i.e., Kadri. Maybe he can step up and be more of like a third liner or middle six. But yeah, he's only going to have to do so much, which is perfect for him. I think that's like the best. It's the best pathway into the NHL. I think where there are expectations that you carry your weight, but there's already a ceiling on top of him where he can be comfortable in the
yeah,
role, and if he has to grow beyond that, then that's just
yeah.
gravy.
That's a very nice way of saying you're not getting ice time over McKinnon.
Yeah, that's basically what it means. But I mean, it's a good team to be
Yeah.
traded to. They're obviously they've been at the top of the league for the past 2 seasons. Another one of those kind of typical. I don't know. They're better than the Maple Leafs in that they've actually won a
Hmm.
round, and I'd say their contract structure means that they're lined up to be contenders for longer. Although we'll see how much Cale Makar makes this summer, but
Yeah.
it's a good spot to
Prime
land.
offer sheet target, by the way.
Oof. Do you think so? We did see an offer sheet, I think, 2 seasons ago, right, with Sebastian
Yeah.
Aho and the
Yeah.
Canadians. Do you think we ever see something like that again?
Um, well, apparently Marner got two offer sheets, right? Before he re-signed with Toronto. But
That's
here's the
right,
thing though,
and he
he
just
the that we came to know that because the agent let that be known. It's only really news if the player signs it. So
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
the question though. If a player will sign it again,
Why would an agent share that? Is it having a very public contract negotiation?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you've already used your leverage, right? The ink's already been put to paper.
Yeah, yeah. It's
An enforceable contract.
that whole saga with Mitch Marner was very messy, and being in the Toronto area, it's funny to see how much of the bad blood that was generated in the fan base, because I think people did take that personally, because he's a local kid. It's his dream to play for the Leafs, and he's holding out for more money.
Yeah, you're supposed to take a pay cut.
But
you're not.
When the Leafs got booted this year in the first round again, and he wasn't necessarily the most impactful player. I think he was okay, but a guy like Nylander was much better this year. That's the first thing people think of. They don't think about him being top 5 in the league in scoring in the regular season, because people don't care anymore. It's been a long time since they won a round. I think they had the longest Stanley Cup drought in the league at this point. So, which I think the guys at the Seattle Kraken expansion draft roasted them for, which I loved. But yeah, lots going on there.
So we've talked about how in order to get to playoff contention status, the team needed 2 more top 4 defensemen and 2 more top 6 wingers. Do you think Graves fits that role?
I think he, for sure. I think if you're planning on him being a top 2 defenseman, you're probably out of luck. And if he is a top 2 defenseman on your team, unless his partner is like a Cale Makar, you're probably in trouble. Like, you're not going to hit that final level. But a top 4 for sure, especially on this team. Like that's a lower bar than on Colorado, and even on a stacked Colorado team, he got a ton of ice time. So he brings the sort of stuff that I think Tom Fitzgerald really covets. He's big. Big's kind of the key word. He plays defensively. He can lay good hits. Interesting that a player with that profile also shoots the puck like nobody's business, just in terms of volume. I wouldn't be surprised if Graves is one of the highest volume shooters on the team next year, forward or defensive.
A lot of shin pad hits.
Yeah. I mean, from what I heard from Colorado fans, it's not necessarily a plus, but that, what are you going to do? Like, we just need any sort of offense, especially from the point. So I'm excited for him. I think that's a legitimate upgrade. There's obviously a need for higher ceiling players, but we hope that's what's going to happen tonight, right? We hope it's a defenseman. I think the entire fan base is in love with Luke Hughes at this point, and just the Hughes family in general. So that's the sort of investment that gets you that highest tier player. And maybe you pair Graves in a couple of years with Hughes. You have the really big-bodied, defensive, physical defenseman, and the guy that can skate like the wind. That's not a bad pairing.
Because I'm thinking, if Graves can do anything to help out with penalty kill to win, he's an NHL caliber defenseman. We know that. The team needs NHL caliber defensemen, and any kind of plus on top of that is gravy.
Gravy.
I think the fact that it's really interesting, because he's the type of defenseman that the Devils have been investing a lot of kind of mid-round draft capital into. This kind of like big mobile defenseman that kind of maybe has a little bit of offensive potential there. Guys like Ohachuk, Vukojevic, Misuel, just throughout the years. I mean, different to an extent, but it fits a broad archetype, I would say.
Oh, 100%. I think you're totally correct. And it's interesting because we have so many of those guys stewing in their respective leagues. And we have so many prospects in general. Maybe that frees us up to make a trade of a prospect and some picks to invest in kind of an immediate impact player, just because you have Graves, you have a ton of guys that project, if they hit
Yeah.
their ceiling, to be similar players. So maybe you can afford to spend one or two of them to improve the team now, because that seems to be I don't know, that seems to be the message that's coming out of the organization, at least, through the public statements Fitzgerald has made, and just the general vibe from the team itself, that there's a real focus on immediate success, just because, I think it makes sense. Like, how much is Jack Hughes going to develop when the team is struggling to produce around him? Like, he obviously took a huge step this year and the team sucked, but, to hit that highest level, the level that we probably need him to be a contender, you probably actually need to score goals and win a couple games.
That'll help. That'll definitely help. But yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. If anything, at worst, is the Graves trade is like a stopgap, someone to help get the young defenseman another year of pro seasoning before the NHL. At best, he's a legitimate top 4 contributing defensive defenseman, and
we could use a couple of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Some of the other trades that have taken place since then, I think, have been interesting and make the question of value really murky. Like the Seth Jones trade happened like minutes before we started this, and it looks like he got an 8-year deal instead of seven years, and it's $8.25 million per year cap hit, which is just monstrous. Good for him for getting his money. So he goes to Chicago Blackhawks. Interesting deal in its own, but it also might be interesting from a Devils perspective, because Chicago is one of those teams that a few commentators had mentioned regarding Dougie Hamilton, which is another player that I think the fan base is basically married to at this point. It's like Luke Hughes, Dougie Hamilton, and then anybody on wing, and we're looking pretty good. Chicago making this move, I would think, takes them out of the Dougie Hamilton sweepstakes. Well, I mean, and even from Hamilton's perspective too, right? Like, there's only so much ice time. He would want to go, I assume, to a good team, or at least a team that, I don't know if this is just the Devils fan of me, a team that could be good. But that blue line starts to look a bit more crowded. So yeah, I just don't know, money wise or space wise, if that's really going to happen. But it's also Chicago. And to be honest, they seem motivated to put out some good news these days. Yeah. So, I imagine they're going to be swinging for the fences.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we'll see what actually happens with that. I think it's good. Who knows how long these investigations actually take, but hopefully we'll start hearing more. Well, not start hearing, but, hopefully we'll get an answer soon. And,
yeah, just an absolute mess. Vancouver and Arizona, I thought, was also interesting.
This was a weird one.
Very strange. So those contracts that Vancouver has for their bottom 6 players, and also Louis Eriksson, who perhaps at this point isn't even a bottom 6 player, have been a topic of discussion for years, right? Like, when the Devils were taking on bad contracts for a sweetener, Louis Eriksson was a name. I feel like we've said the name Louis Eriksson at least for like 3 or 4 years on this podcast. And so he gets traded along with Beagle and Antoine Roussel, and the 9th overall pick and the 2022 second round pick for OEL and Connor Garland being the big piece there, and OEL being the salary going back. But it's very strange to me, because those contracts have killed the Canucks for the past couple of years, but there's only 1 year left on them at this point. And OEL is signed, through to my retirement, it seems like. So you're making a really strange move, I guess, to win now, right? Because Garland seems like a win now kind of move, especially when you trade the 9th overall pick for him. But you're also crippling your cap in a similar way with OEL.
I'm not sure what this retirement is that you're talking about. No,
Yeah.
I think it makes me think of those old. My baseball knowledge is very, very antiquated, so I don't know if these kinds of trades happen now. But this is about as close to a sort of, well, all right, we don't even need to bring in baseball, like old hockey trades that you just get traded for money. This is
Yep.
about as close to one of those deals as I think we've seen.
Oh, 100%. And I was talking to my wife about this, and we've had lots of discussions about how obscene at times the amount of money that gets thrown around in sports really is. I think the dollars in this deal amounted to more than $60 million, which is just, it boggles the mind trying to imagine that much money. But that's probably the biggest cap wise deal I've seen in quite some time. Right, like the Seth Jones deal, the contract's probably north of $60 million itself, but just the sheer amount of people and draft capital and money, man, traded there is just
Yeah.
mind-boggling. Like, it makes sense for Arizona. I feel like they make it like very well in that deal just because they get out from the long contract. They take short cap dumps this year, but they get back into the first round because they didn't have a first round pick, and they get a second round pick next year. I think they're up to like 7 or 8 round 1 or 2 picks in the next 2 years,
Mhm.
which is I think a really good start after
Yeah.
a pretty disappointing sequence of events for them.
Yeah. So Garland was the big piece. Um, the question is what's going to happen, if anything, with Chikrin, because they might need to just completely tear it down.
Yeah, yeah, Chikrin's just an amazing player, and I laughed a lot during the draft, the expansion draft the other night, just because the production was a bit awkward, which sometimes happens. But also seeing Dennis Cholowski picked from Detroit, just because I remember vividly the draft that saw Arizona and Detroit swap picks.
Mhm.
So Arizona traded up to switch with Detroit, and they picked Jacob Chikrin at that spot. And the Detroit Red Wings looked like they were doing something kind of nice because they dropped back, I think, 3 or 4 slots, and they still get their guy in Cholowski. And now, a couple years later, Chikrin is like a Norris level defenseman, or maybe just beneath that. And Cholowski is left unprotected in the expansion draft. It's just, that's how unpredictable the draft is, just because, I think Chikrin's projection at the draft was higher than Cholowski's for sure, but they're like 5 spots away and completely different projections since then.
Yeah. Can't really say much more about that because like sometimes you got the skill and sometimes just the development path just doesn't you don't get there for whatever
Well,
reason.
and like, yeah, this it sometimes bothers me when I see people talk about the draft and that like there are definitive right and wrong answers, and I feel like in some cases there might be, where someone can make a very obviously problematic pick for whatever reason. But like, who's to say things wouldn't have turned out differently if those players were drafted by the opposite organizations?
Mhm.
Certain injuries don't happen. Like, it's less. I don't know. I have a harder time being so certain about things that regardless of what happened, that these two players would have developed in this way, regardless of context. But Chikrin is obviously just a higher caliber player at this point. And it's exciting to see because Arizona they need something. That fan base does not have a lot to cheer for.
Yeah,
I feel bad for them.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Um,
By the way, I just saw here that Seth Jones was only going to sign an extension with 2 teams, Chicago and Dallas. So, uh, pretty limited market there. But it sounds like Columbus got a pretty sweet deal in return. What was it? You were saying it was Adam Boqvist?
yeah, I'm not sure about the rest there, but Boquist is in there. It looks like Seth Jones with Tampa Bay's 2021 first going to Chicago for Adam Boqvist and Chicago's first, so 12th overall.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a big commitment to make for them. Chicago.
Immediate.
Well, and like, oh, I can see my cat in the background. It's for Chicago, like that's a team that I don't really understand where they are organizationally. Like there are teams like the Devils where it's very clear we're a young team that's trying to get better, and we've been on that trajectory ever since we started to tear things down. It's taken longer than I think everyone would have liked, but that's where we are. Chicago is holding on to like the last years of Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, but they also have some exciting young players in Doc and DeBrincat, but then they bring in a really expensive player on a long commitment in Seth Jones that doesn't really fit either of those age groups. He's kind of in the middle. Is he like the carryover from the Taves era to the DeBrincat Doc era?
I could see. Oh my gosh! Sorry, he's he's checking out the pictures. Yeah, I mean they had cap room to play with after trading Keith to the Oilers, and my guess is that they're trying to stay competitive while the Kane and Taves contracts are still on the books.
Yeah, I guess, and like Jonathan Taves apparently is coming back this year and seems to be in a good spot, but yeah, it's just confusing the timeline to me.
His name was apparently Brad Mills. That was back in 2014. It's all like these cash consideration trades, which is basically just purchasing.
I'm not a very like proud person, like I feel like I can put my ego aside, but if I was traded for a single dollar,
Yeah.
I think I'd be pretty pissed.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the Devils and the draft here?
Sure.
Because it's it's going to start in about 35 minutes. We have the draft feed here, so we'll have our commentary and the feed itself.
Yeah.
But Devils drafting at number 4.
Sorry,
behind.
One quick thing, real quick. Before we talk about the draft, I have to imagine that Jones getting 9.5 means that a starting offer for Hamilton is going to be 10 plus, right?
So apparently, because of that 8th year, the AAV got dropped down to the 8s, like 8.2 or 8.4 or something like that. But even still, it doesn't seem fair that Seth Jones would get more than Dougie Hamilton, right? Mm-hmm. Like, is what you're saying? Like,
yeah, especially on the UFA market.
Yes, yeah, and yeah, because he has even more leverage or more power in that negotiation. Mm-hmm. I'm still excited about it. Like, I wouldn't be mad if the Devils really made a big move here, because it's certainly the Facebook fan base has been talking about the owners spending money for quite some time. I mean, they certainly have been spending money, but this is a move that signifies that they're ready to take the next step, even if I don't know. The way I justify it in my head is that if the team does well, even without Hamilton, they're going to have to navigate some really difficult cap questions or cap situations. If Dougie Hamilton makes that worse, but makes the team better at the same time, then this is the sort of thing that good teams have to deal with. And I'd rather have that problem than deciding which of our middle 6 wingers we can afford to keep,
Yeah. And also, I mean, 2 quick things right there too. Firstly, excuse me, there's been rumblings from like official insiders, quote unquote, I can't remember who it was, Pagnota or something like that, but apparently the Devils might be looking to try to maybe possibly move Subban, which I'm not sure. But even if there was no move, again, I'm not sure why, but whatever. Right now the Devils are sitting at what, like $11 million under the cap floor, and only a few free agents to sign. Like Merkley, Kuokkanen, and Sharon Govich are the big ones, and that's not going to break the bank. So there's a lot of room to quote unquote play with. But secondly, I think more importantly, I almost don't care about the cap ceiling anymore. I really don't, because I mean, yeah, the Lightning were the most obvious example of that. I mean, whether I'm not here to say that they cheated, because I don't think so. I genuinely don't think so. But looking back over the past few years, like, what is the steepest price a team has had to pay for cap relief? I'm thinking, my immediate thought goes to both trades with Carolina, actually. Chicago sending Teuvo Teravainen with Bickle to Carolina, or the Leafs sending a first round pick with Marleau.
And that first round pick became Seth Jarvis too, who is just a fantastic prospect and basically the prototypical Canes prospect. So that ended up being a pretty high price. And we saw a couple moves this week where a team traded picks just for another team to take a player, receiving nothing in return. Which we've seen trades that are basically that before, where the player coming back is a minor leaguer, not a big deal, but literally nothing. Kind of, I think, sells that point too.
Yeah, but the big one was what the Islanders trading Ladd.
Yes, Islanders, and then the Gostisbehere one as well.
Oh, that's right.
Was interesting, and makes you think a bit differently about the Ristolainen trade as well, because you basically have to factor in the cost that it, like what it cost Philadelphia to trade Gostisbehere, which I think was at least 1 second, perhaps 2, to make room to take him in the first place. So they overpaid for the player, but also overpaid for the cap space to take that player. So you're paying twice. And that's just because they have a team where, they're paying JVR too much money, for example, or Voracek isn't performing to his cap hit. And that's just what they had to do to make room for a player they thought would take them to the next level.
And it seems like Voracek is on the outs. It hasn't been confirmed that he's requested a trade, but there's definitely smoke about how he and his camp want a future outside of the Flyers organization.
It's hard to picture him not as a Flyer, if only because he looks like a Flyer, which basically at this point just means he looks like a Viking, and he's got red hair. It's basically the team at this point. It's like the Montreal Canadiens. They have a thing where all of their scouting staff are absolutely jacked, and the Philadelphia Flyers all look like Vikings and have red hair.
Yeah.
So
it's too bad the Vancouver Canucks couldn't make the trade for Ekman-Larsson while the Sedins were still playing.
Yeah, see, that's a good time to trade for OEL. At the height of his powers. At this point, you're just getting the tail end of things, and But
speaking of power,
yes,
what a
segue.
We got to throw it in there. By the way, I've got I was looking for. I did not put much effort into it because, I was looking for a beer. It's been a long time since I've cracked one open, but I was looking for a beer that had something to do with Luke or something to do with Hughes. Couldn't find it, so I just stuck with Guinness because it's the draft. So, yeah.
But it is in a can, right? I'd be very.
Yeah, well, this one is not.
I was gonna say, if you have a tap in your room, I'm coming over. At this point. Yeah, the draft, man. This has really snuck up on me. I feel like we've been talking about the draft for years at this point. We've been putting out those videos on the YouTube channel. Yeah. I think we've invested probably too much emotional energy in this draft class at this point. And all of a sudden it's 25 minutes away basically. How do you see things kind of shaking out at the top?
Well, honestly, my gut is that they're gonna not do anything fancy. Don't get cute with it. I think Hughes is going to be the pick for the Devils. Now, of course, the rest of that is going to be dependent. Did you have a sort of like, I came up with a little mock draft just because, it's really silly and dumb. I've had to change it a couple times with all these trades. Now I'm going to absolutely have to change it because I didn't include this Chicago-Columbus trade. But I've got Buffalo taking Owen Power first.
Very controversial.
I know, super controversial. It could, we've heard rumors it could be Eklund. Mm-hmm. They like Eklund a lot. We've got a lot of, what's the word? We've got a lot of traffic on the YouTube videos on the channel for some videos from the upstate New York area, or the New York State area. So that's always fun, enjoyable.
Yeah, it was somehow subsidizing the Buffalo Sabres organization.
That's right. Yeah, we expect compensation for our labor if you're going to do that.
Yeah, no, I think Power's the move there. Eklund would be interesting, and I think very justifiable. Yeah, because at that point they just need skill, right?
Yeah, but also they could go with Beniers, and Beniers is the interesting one because whether or not they're going to plan around a potential Eichel trade, of those players, I think Beniers not only has the best, not highest upside, but just to clarify, best potential to immediately step into the NHL and contribute. So if they're just looking for skill that they can just like plug and play, then I would lean Beniers. But I still think Power is going to be their pick, just because he's the consensus guy.
And I think a team that has, what's a kind way to put this, has really changed their scouting department. Let's say that.
Yeah, that is
going
nice.
Off of the consensus, I think, is harder. Like it's one thing if you have the most information, you are the most prepared, and you have your guy. I'm thinking like Steve Yzerman, Moritz Seider level of like, we know this guy down to the freckle, and you're just that confident for sure. I don't know how realistic it is that Buffalo feels that way about anybody, right? Because it's mostly video scouting. They'll have talked to him, of course, but it takes a lot of guts and information to go off of the consensus. What are you saying?
Saying that I'm saying that I think the Buffalo Sabres will pick Owen Power.
Yeah. All right. So number two overall to Seattle. I agree. Power for me is the first pick.
But it could
Seattle
be
is where
some names that are floated around have been Eklund, Beniers, Hughes was kind of mentioned at some point, but just to clarify, we think it's going to be Power. Okay.
Yeah. Seattle for you is what, Beniers at this point?
And the reason for that, I can't wait. We're doing all of this, and it's going to be completely wrong. I can't wait. That's what I think about the draft.
100%. Yeah.
I have Beniers because, like I said before, he can step immediately in. He's a nice two-way like pivot center. He's going to play in the NHL next year, unless has Power said that he mentioned he wants to go back to Michigan for another year, and Eklund said that he wanted to go back to Sweden for another year. I don't remember seeing anything from Beniers.
I think he suggested the same.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know if he made it as firm a commitment as Power did, and there were a lot of jokes about Power saying,
yeah,
as if trying to that he doesn't get taken by Buffalo. I'm not sure any player doesn't want to be taken first overall, but it's funny to laugh at anyways. But yeah, Beniers I think makes a lot of sense. The only question for me is that it's your first pick as an organization. It's not the biggest swing for the fences skill-wise, I think. I think he's a complete player. He has a really good amount of skill. but I feel like if you're swinging exclusively on skill and upside, you'd almost be looking at like Eklund.
Yeah.
Instead.
Well, you'd be, yeah. By the way, Jake Bean apparently traded to Columbus for a second rounder.
Well, I mean, they've got a lot on them these days, so yeah, good for them. Surprising to see it in division, actually.
But that's right.
I'm not sure they think that highly of Jake Bean to be concerned about that, to be honest.
Is Columbus in the division this year? Unless it goes back. I don't. Yeah.
We're going back to the usual.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Stuff. I think the reason why I think Beniers is going to be their pick is because he's just a very good player to build a team around, and especially when you look at Seattle's roster, I mean, they're kind of missing a significant centerpiece.
I thought you were going to say prospects. I was like, yes, Ian. This is their first draft.
What are they doing? They don't have any prospects.
Absolutely bare covered. Yeah. No, it's true. Like a center, a responsible two-way guy that has skill, can't skate. It basically checks all the boxes, except maybe size. He's just normal sized. But I think it's a very safe pick. It's probably the right pick to make just because of that. But I wouldn't be surprised if Eklund isn't taken at 1, if he might be an option at 2.
Yeah, there's a couple wild cards in this draft class. I really like Eklund. He could go. I actually have him falling to 8 in this draft, in my mock draft, which is, I think, kind of ridiculous. But every year there's that one person that falls for some reason.
By the way,
sorry, go ahead.
John Fisher in the chat just said that we're definitely going back to the usual division.
Okay.
So we'll get to see Carolina normally.
Great.
Although we don't get to play Buffalo as much anymore, which kind of sucks.
I don't know, man. Like they've been our Achilles heel.
There have been some very bad games against Buffalo. Yeah.
A big reason for that would be their goalie, Linus Ullmark. So hopefully, yeah.
Number 3.
This was. I mean, the whole thing is messy, but this is where it really gets tough because reports are reports, but apparently Anaheim is interested in taking a forward. People are speculating like someone like Dylan Guenther. I put Simon Edvinsson at 3 because I put Anaheim taking Simon Edvinsson for a couple of reasons. I mean, he's very highly ranked amongst NHL scouts around the league. And 2, he kind of checks all the boxes for Anaheim. Specifically with like Hampus Lindholm or whatnot, they like their tall Swedish defenseman.
Yeah, and they can all skate too, and that's certainly a strength of Edmondson's. Yeah. That's a player that I think might have the biggest difference of opinion between public and NHL. Right, I think NHL teams love him. We've seen comments like that from people like Bob McKenzie.
He's ranked third from Bob McKenzie's rankings, which is based off of speaking with NHL scouts.
Yeah. The public's perception of him, I think, is a little unfair. I know you and I like him. I'm quite high on him as well. He's ranked 3rd on my board, but I think the concern with him is that he can be very inconsistent, which is true, and there are questions about the level of offense he can bring. So he projects well defensively. He skates very well, very smoothly, differently than Luke Hughes. He looks a bit more effortless out there. He's got a really big stride. But it's the question about offense and decision-making and making sometimes very risky passes with little upside. But, NHL teams covet the things that he has. It's the skating, size, strength, defensive ability, and potential for offense, but no games.
Yeah, and I think he's a better prospect than Philip Broberg, but just look at Broberg. He was a big defenseman that skated pretty well in that he had some very nice end-to-end rushes here and there,
Mhm.
and he got drafted, I think, higher than he should have. But yeah, we like Edmondson here. Yeah,
Controversial, for sure. Definitely don't say that on Facebook,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it doesn't get received well. And I think it's that. I think part of it is a fear that the Devils will pick him,
mhm,
right? It's the fan base is so in love with Luke
mhm,
Hughes and William Eklund and even Dylan Genther that the idea that there's a player out there that has things that not only the NHL covets, but presumably Tom Fitzgerald covets, just based on the past 12
yeah,
months. He's got size, he can skate, he's defensively capable, he can hit. All of those things are apparently what Tom Fitzgerald looks for. Think about uh, the mold that I think they want Shakira Mukhamadullin to fill, or Ryan Graves. I think people start to see like, oh, this would actually be very tempting for the Devils. And if you want Luke Hughes, that's probably not
yeah.
comforting.
I think a real quick comparison between, I mean, there's plenty of comparison between Edmondson and Hughes, but specifically in the areas that they excel at, which is the transition game. Hughes is kind of
Mm-hmm.
that sort of straight end speed, just rush up the ice. Whereas I get more of like an agile vibe from Edmondson. He carves his way, cuts back and forth, and sometimes he'll make an errant pass. Whereas Hughes, he doesn't actually put his head down, but he, metaphorically puts his head down and just charges through the neutral zone, which I think I mean, we can transition this to segue this to the Devils pick. Um, well, real quick, I think Anaheim would be considering any of Edmondson, Eklund, or Gunther for that pick there.
Agreed.
Um, but I do have the Devil. I do have the Devils taking Luke Hughes. It's no brainer.
Yeah.
It's the boring. It's really exciting, but Hughes is a high-end skating talent, uh, explosive skating, um, and he's extremely young.
Mm-hmm.
He missed the last draft by what, 5 6 days?
Yeah, less than a week, which
Less,
is pretty incredible.
so
Um,
he's basically a full year younger
yeah.
than Owen Power.
Which I thought about this the other day for the first time. He has size, right? Like he's 6'2", and he skates like a Hughes, which is like check right there.
Done.
But he's so young that he still has time to grow, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of these high end athletes hit a cap just because the stress you put your body under, potentially limits your growth height wise.
Mhm.
But he's young enough that he could grow another inch or inch and a half or even more, just depending on how he ends up, which would make that an even more interesting bet. Just because,
Yeah.
if he starts to be a little more comparable in size as a guy like Edvinson, which is not likely, but he could get closer.
Mhm.
That just looks even better.
Yeah, and you could make the argument that because he is a year younger than someone like Owen Power, he basically has an entire new year of his development to get to that point. So you could try to figure out, okay, Owen Power now versus Luke Hughes in the next year. So the biggest thing that Hughes needs to work on, I really don't care about the defensive game. Like, just throw someone into, you know, throw, get him a good coach. He's going to Michigan, so that's check right there. Um, my biggest concern with him, the area that I think he needs to work on, is sometimes when he skates up the ice, he puts on these blinders and he gets tunnel vision, and sometimes he just skates himself into a corner, and that results in a low percentage play after that. I think that can be easily fixed.
Yeah, that's coachable for sure. Presumably, I'm sure some people are stubborn enough where that's not possible. But he seems to be, yeah, the kind of guy who's the kinks you need to iron out seem doable for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas other players, if concerns are like physiological, that's much more difficult, right? But if it's decision making, that's something you can definitely work on. You could say the same for Edmondson for a lot of his stuff too,
Yeah.
in terms of the passing inconsistencies, the risk reward calculations he makes sometimes are very wonky. But yeah, Hughes, you're much more likely to find below the goal line because he's carried it down there and he's sticking around. Whereas Edmondson, I think once he gets the puck into the zone, he's looking to make a pass. It's not always a good pass, but there it is.
I also want to mention that like I said, I think Luke is going to be the pick.
Mm-hmm.
But some other names to consider here would be a Dylan Guenther, maybe even a Simon Edvinsson, or a William Eklund. I think all of those are in the realm of possibilities. Yeah. The reason why I'm holding off on Clark, well, we'll get to Clark in just a little bit, but I think those are the big choice options that they're going to have.
Yeah.
Choose between. I think they're going to go with Hughes.
Any preference between the two forwards there, if it isn't Hughes?
I really like Guenther. I really do. But something about Eklund seems like a perfect fit. And I don't just mean either of them would be fantastic, but I think Eklund is a natural left wing. He's more of a line driver, whereas Guenther is a bit of a finishing guy, which is honest fine. We've got two very good centers. I think the way that Eklund thinks and processes the game kind of puts him ahead for me. But I certainly wouldn't be upset with Guenther.
Yeah, I've seen people talk about Guenther top 3, like going to Anaheim.
Yeah.
I think he's a prospect that definitely is of that caliber. But for me, I think I agree. Eklund would be a really interesting choice just based on, the skating ability is there for sure. Really high IQ, like the way he thinks the game is really, just really effective. And I mean, the natural chemistry with Alexander Holtz is a thing as well. But also think about the fact that he had a better year production-wise than Holtz did in his draft year. And Holtz was a top 7 pick for sure.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a player that is, has the potential to be a star, I think.
Seriously, yeah.
Do you want to talk about Brandt Clarke?
Sure. Real quick, I have Brandt Clarke going 7th. I have Columbus taking Mason McTavish at 5 just because they could go. I mean, they got Boqvist back from the Jones trade. They could be trying to replace their defense, but I think McTavish is just such a Columbus pick, and they're looking for that Pierre-Luc Dubois replacement type, and he plays a very similar game. So Brandt Clarke, I have him going 7th to San Jose. Clarke could go anywhere. We've seen all kinds of, quotes from NHL scouts about whether he's in, the top 5 or not even in the top 20, so to speak. And the big question for Clarke is the skating, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. But what Clarke does, his stick handling skills, his offensive ability, his way of processing the game they're all high end. So the question here will be, how much does his skating hold him back, if at all? Because it's not an orthodox skating style.
No, and the interesting thing is when he was playing overseas, and you saw this at the under-18 championships as well, when he's carrying the puck, he's still very effective, right? He gets through the neutral zone pretty well. He's creative enough that he can enter the zone, using stick handling, and it turns out pretty well. I think where the skating concerns really kick up is defensively, defending transitions, skating backwards, trying to gap people out, push them to the boards. That's the sort of thing where I think specifically the NHL teams will be concerned with, just because that's a really important part of the game. Even if you're a high possession team, the way that you stick with possession is you deny zone entries and you recover the puck and you send it the other way very quickly. Brandt is good at the second part, getting it away quickly. But the question is if he's going to be a liability getting the puck in the first place. Because if you can blow by him wide, 8 out of 10 times, it doesn't necessarily matter how good you are with the puck because
Yeah.
you're not going to have it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the thing is that I think the important thing here is that we need to you don't have to conflate like, aesthetically pleasing skating style with effective skating style, because he does move around well. He can get, he handles the puck well when he's on the blue line. He walks the offensive zone blue line really well. It's just the big thing. I mean, we mentioned this before, but the big thing about the transition to the NHL means that you need to be more agile, better with that first step quickness. If you can put it all together, that's going to be a heck of a defenseman.
Yeah, I mean that's the sort of player where if I was playing NHL 20 or whatever, it's like you could play him at forward. Like in a world where the specifics don't really matter, it's like, yeah, I could see his puck skills being really effective there. He is a defenseman. It's his position. He plays it very well. The issue is that defensive side of things because, like you said, the skating doesn't need to look good. It just needs to be effective. And I think, yeah, the biggest question mark is while defending transitions. Um, is there a player that we didn't mention? You mentioned McTavish quickly, but other than
Yeah.
that you think could sneak into the top 4, for example?
I'm very high on Kent Johnson, to be quite honest. Um,
Interesting.
but I think, if anything, I think Cole Sillinger would be a name to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, I like both of those guys. I'm a little cooler on Kent Johnson than
Mhm.
some. It's the same sort of thing where it's like decision making. Like he's got incredible hands. He's probably by far the most skilled person in this draft with the puck. It's just sometimes you see him stick handle himself into a corner or
Mhm.
drive straight into traffic, and the team loses the puck, and it doesn't necessarily matter how good he is. Cole Sillinger would be interesting because that's a guy I see pretty solidly in like the 10 to 15 range maybe, but the fact that he plays center and can shoot the puck, I think would be very attractive to teams.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, honestly, how many times have we seen a smaller player that's got high end goal scoring get passed over because of that? And for smaller players, there's that expectation that you need to be a water bug out there. We've had, of course, there are. See, my mind is a little jumbled right now. I can't come up with specific examples, but for every Cole Caulfield and Alex DeBrincat, there's, well, I can't even say Reed Boucher because he's been doing great in the KHL and apparently is interested at some point in coming back to the NHL. But the idea that, for every one of those success stories, there's quite a bit of unsuccessful picks.
Yeah, and yeah, for sure. I think that's bang on. With Sillinger in particular, watching him in the USHL was hilarious because his shot was so far above the caliber
Mm-hmm.
of shooting in that league. It was hilarious to watch because I saw him score a goal on a goalie from basically the blue line. It just went straight
Mm-hmm.
in just because his release is that quick. You see some players that don't really need to telegraph their movement by kind of flexing their stick. They just whip it kind of from
Yeah.
a standstill. That's Cole Sillinger. And it caught goalies completely off guard in the USHL this year. Very fun to watch.
Yeah. I think one thing to note too is that um, as chaotic and hectic as this season has been for scouting wise, um, the fact that the three, maybe four top goal scorers in the draft have all been like pure goal scorers, we're talking about, have all played in the USHL really makes things really much easier. Or maybe three of the top four. I really like Isaac Rosen, but yeah.
Yeah, we're getting lower and lower percentage here as we
Yeah.
go. Lots of
Yeah.
fun players. I love Rosen too, another really good shooter. I'd be curious about Man, I feel like Fabian Luzell is a player that some teams are going to love and other
Yeah,
teams will not draft at all,
yeah,
just because of the size and demanding a trade in your draft year and then not necessarily lighting it up afterwards doesn't always go over well. you
hmm
know, um, I think teams can read a lot into that. Um, I mean, he wanted to bet on himself, and I totally respect that. Very skilled
right.
player, but again, size is a concern there.
Yeah. Here's the thing too, with Lisel, like what you're getting is someone, one of the best, definitely one of the best for skaters at the forward position, and someone with just an immense amount of skill. He kind of plays a game that's, I don't want to say selfish, because I mean you get to a certain level playing your game. He does a lot of things by himself, and some teams may be concerned about that. I don't really think so. I haven't actually ironed out a list, but if I did, he would be very high on that, like top 9 or so.
Yeah, I think that's kind of
Is
bang
that,
on.
yeah.
Two things. The draft is going to start momentarily. Second, Kevin Weeks just tweeted out to keep an eye on the New Jersey Devils and San Jose
Okay.
Sharks, which is interesting. I assume it's not for Eric Carlson. I think Timo Meyer is a name that Devils fans are pretty
Don't
interested in.
yeah. Don't get me
Just collect all of the Swiss
don't
players.
get me excited
you
like
know?
that.
So just something to watch
Yeah.
out for. I'm gonna double check that the stream is
Yeah.
working. I think it is.
And for
Let's.
people watching, we are going to have a feed on this stream.
We might have it right now.
Oh.
I'm just gonna have to run it quick. All right. So the audio for the feed will be coming in for people watching through YouTube. We might not be able to hear it, so you might want to pull it up separately, Ian.
Sounds good.
But it looks like we're getting started here.
hmm
I'm so excited. These nights are always really, really fun.
Yeah.
And also, if someone in chat could tell me if the volume's okay. I know I'm trying to keep it just a little bit lower.
Because the people need to hear
They need to hear.
our cutting analysis.
Yeah. Man, having 3 Swiss players on the team at the same time would be kind of fun. You'd have basically
Oh, Siegenthaler, that's right.
Siegenthaler. And we could always bring back Mueller. That could be fun. It probably isn't, but the option's there.
There's also another Swiss player that's apparently might be on the outs with his team as well. In a Kevin Fiala.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I think that's out of our price range.
Yeah, probably.
Don't know if we have the pre-approved bank loan for that, but
I certainly don't. With my credit, it's not happening.
no.
If you had to guess, who's the first team that really goes off the board here? And off the board from like the consensus perspective.
I gotta remember what the order is. I think. I mean, it could be Detroit, and that's not just because of that one.
It is on brand.
Yeah, it would be on brand with the cider pick, but also they need a lot of different positions. I would have said maybe they could go goalie, but I think they're going to be comfortable moving forward with Nedeljkovic.
Yeah, that whole thing's a bit of a mess too. That trade. And by the way, someone asked if we had talked about the Rangers' beautiful trade yet today. We had not. I honestly, as soon as Seth Jones dropped, I completely forgot about that. But always nice to see the division help the Devils by getting worse.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they traded Buchnevich away. Maybe they thought he was going to ask for too much money or something, but they're definitely not a better team because of it.
Yeah, hard to imagine how they would be, just based on that. But man, that the amount of surprising things that happened today just made it very difficult to get work done, if I'm honest.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, it's our best friend, Jeff Gorton, which is one of my favorite memories from the 5 years of this podcast, is during one of the draft lotteries, when it was down to the Devils and the Rangers, and I forget who picked third that year. And you came out with the quote,
Hawks.
Yeah, the Hawks.
Sorry.
You said that Jeff Gorton looks like someone who would take your lunch money, and I couldn't agree more.
How much of the scouts push you? What's going to happen with Kevin Adams and the Sabres tonight?
Yeah.
It's the general manager's call.
Well, we'll see. I mean, not going to get too much into like what the Rangers are doing, but I think to me it's clear that the move, at least with the big free agent signing of Barclay Goodrow, I think that's coming from up top.
Yeah,
yeah.
That seems to be the case. And to be honest, I wonder how much of this, the last week or so of moves you can read into as a response to Tom Wilson. That I think that probably pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah.
And like, they're getting tougher. They're not necessarily getting better, but they seem to be a bit more sandpapery. So if that's the direction ownership wants to go, then the guy who was only hired very recently is going to go that direction. I think it'd be hard to say no after the last guy got booted out, after what was a pretty good rebuild. Like, I think they did really well.
Yeah.
And you see someone like that kicked out, you're probably, you're going to go with what they want for the first little bit. Oh man, I love seeing the little clips of the guys working in the war room, just furiously typing. What are you talking? Like, what are you doing right now? You're going to be on the clock in like 7 minutes, and they're just doing correspondence.
So when do you think this is actually going to get started?
Probably tomorrow, at this point.
Yeah. Oh god, if it's anything like last year's draft.
I think we were on stream until about 11:30 last year, if I remember.
I
go to bed at like 9:30 these days, so this is going to be rough. And the second day, I didn't watch day 2, but I kept on checking my Twitter feed kind of compulsively as you do these days. And I couldn't believe, like, I thought Twitter was broken because I stopped seeing names pop up. It's like, no, that's just how long it took between picks. Just brutal. The second day's rough at the best of times.
Yeah.
I love hearing the stories of general managers and scouts getting pissed when another team calls a timeout in like the 6th round, because they're all just like,
oh yeah,
I need to go home. I haven't slept in 3 days.
Get out of here.
This is John Davidson, right? Who left the Rangers and works for Columbus now.
Yes. Does he work with Columbus now? Yeah, I guess he does. He's wearing the jacket. Or the shirt.
He's brought in. He seems like the kind of guy that helps with the rebuild.
Yeah. What feed is this, by the way, if you don't mind?
I think this is NHL Network.
NHL Network. Okay.
I think. Although Sam Cosentino's there, and he's Sportsnet. I don't know. I think they're all kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Weeks is NHL Network too. Also, very impressive to see Weeks break as much stuff as he did this week, and hinting at very big things, basically while being on camera. It's the same thing with like Friedman and those guys. It's like, I don't know how you do it, just because the TV alone, I think, would occupy 150% of my brain power.
No.
I'm really curious about that San Jose thing, though, because if it's Timo Meier, that's pretty exciting and also slightly terrifying, because his qualifying offer at the end of next season, not the upcoming one, but the one after that, is $10 million.
Yeah.
Which is big. That's big money.
I'll be honest, though, I'm not too concerned about that, just because like a qualifying offer will only really happen if you don't reach an agreement beforehand. So it is there looming on the horizon. It is a fantastic negotiation bargaining chip, but I don't think it'll be something that we'll have to really be concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you hope it would be a sticking point, but that's a big number. At the very least, it skews the negotiation upwards. But again, having to pay good players is a good problem to have. It's better than the problems we have had recently, so can't complain that much.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just pulling up a different stream just so.
So you get the audio.
Yeah, just so the audio is in sync or synced up.
Thinking about Kent Johnson in like the top 5, like you said, that would be really interesting.
Apparently, yeah. Okay, we're good. I got the. Yeah, I think I'm on the same feed. Apparently, some chatter. I can't remember who, but some chatter came out after the Arizona trade with Vancouver that they might be interested in Johnson, but they weren't sure if that pick is going to be high enough to get him.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk in the past couple of weeks about like a top 9, that being kind of the consensus grouping of first-tier prospects. Just because after Power, just because he's seen as kind of the consensus number 1, everyone else is pretty tightly packed. Kent Johnson, for me, being the lowest of those. But I could easily see a team, especially if that team sees him as a center. Like, he used to play center. He doesn't at Michigan, or at least doesn't mostly. If you think he's a center and he has the hands that he has, I could see you talking yourself into a pretty high pick.
Yeah. And especially, I mean, well, it all depends if Beniers is going to be there next year or not. If Beniers is not going to be at Michigan next year, I think they're going to move Johnson to center. I could see them moving him to center anyway, because like you said, he played significant amount of time at center he was in the BCHL league, right?
I believe so, yeah.
And that's funny because I actually had, before this trade, I actually had Vancouver picking Johnson because, among other things, he's a local.
Yeah, he's a local
kid.
Boy.
That's not the only reason why, but it would have worked out pretty nicely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice touch. I wonder how much pressure that puts on a player too. Like, I'm thinking about like Mitch Marner, Jonathan Drouin. Like, that's more broadly, I guess, being a francophone player in Montreal. But I wonder how much extra pressure that adds to, to perform in front of your hometown team. The funny thing about so many players coming out of the OHL and the GTA in general, the Toronto area, is how many different teams families root for here. Like, it's the Ottawa Senators, it's the Habs, it's the Bruins, it's Detroit.
Yeah.
But everyone assumes that they're hometown kids, so they rooted for the Leafs. It's sometimes a little awkward when you have to explain that.
Yeah. I mean, Jersey's the same thing, So many different teams here. What, 4?
Yep.
4 different teams right in this immediate area.
Yeah.
And that's just hockey. There's basketball, football, baseball.
Yeah, and
basketball kind of.
Yeah, I guess that's what the Knicks.
Yeah.
I don't want.
It was a very rough time.
It sounds like it.
When they moved to Brooklyn.
I kind of miss Elliot Friedman's old hair, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Oh, just the chaos.
Yeah, and the beard.
Yeah, the beard definitely sold it.
I gotta say, his 31 Thoughts articles and podcast have really cemented as kind of required reading, which I think is really cool. That's someone that's really kind of carved out their own space.
Yeah.
And people like him, I think, are really interesting because it must be really difficult to balance being an insider and sharing sensitive info with protecting your relationship with the sources, right? Like, and you have to be able to talk to the general managers as well.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many GMs at one time have him blocked or like in the corner. It's like, I'm not going to talk to you for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You must have a couple of those going at any one time.
I think, yeah, because you have to also consider like non-disclosure agreements, that sort of like privacy stuff that people's, jobs and well-being are basically based off of. But I'm also thinking on the flip side that could have potential if you're trying to manufacture some interest in a player. You could tell, Frege, for example, like, hey, we have some interest in this player.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just to start, kind of hype them up. I think they do the same with coaching or GM vacancies as well. Like people that they're close with or people that they rely on are close with. If you say that so and so is a candidate for a job enough times, maybe they actually do get a look. I'm sure that doesn't hurt.
No. So what do you think they're going to start it? Next 10 minutes or so?
It's
I'm good for tonight. So like, it's not a time issue for me. I'm just curious because like this stuff always takes forever.
Oh yeah. I feel like there's going to be less ceremony at the beginning though.
Mm-hmm.
Like in person, I don't think they do the anthem, but there's lots of thank yous and people have to get up and back from the stage and so forth. This hopefully will be quicker. Unless it's just so held up because there are so many trades happening that they have to process all of them.
Mm-hmm.
The central registry only has a single fax machine.
Yeah, and just to give a little perspective too. I mean, every year we say that like this draft is difficult. It's difficult to evaluate. Yada yada yada. Scouts and these departments heavily rely on the international tournaments.
Yeah.
So we're not just talking about the World Juniors, which is the under 20. We're not just talking about the U18 championships. We're not even talking about the World Championships that, for example, Owen Power played in. But, the big one also to start the year in August is the Ivan Hlinka, or now, what is it called? The Hlinka Gretzky Cup now, which is basically the premier draft eligibles tournament to start the year. Get these guys, get their names, keep an eye on them. And a lot of these, so many of these have been canceled.
Mm-hmm. Or specific teams have backed out. Like Canada's backing out of a lot of international stuff this summer. Yeah. And they're just going to, I think their U20s and U18s are going to just play each other in a camp instead of going elsewhere.
Yeah.
Another thing to think about too is, they're the Hughes, the brothers themselves, the brothers Hughes.
Brothers Hughes. Oh gosh.
So teams also keep a book on players years out, right? Like they didn't just see Owen Power this season; they've known about him for a while. They definitely scouted him heavily last season.
Oh, hey, this kid's pretty good.
Next year's draft is perhaps even more screwed than this one, because you don't even have the underage year at all. Yeah. And so it's harder to make projections because you don't know where they're starting from. They're just there next season. Like OHL kids next year, unless your name is Shane Wright, people don't know a ton about you at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Specifically about OHL, I mean, the OHL did not have a season this year. So a lot of players played overseas. We saw that with McTavish, Clark, Brennan Othman, et cetera. But what you're saying is that the teams already had a baseline profile on these guys.
Yes. Yeah.
And they kind of, I'd have to assume that they have an idea of like Anthem players, kind of just an idea, especially when you get drafted into the OHL, whatnot. But that is a huge period of growth and development for a player that if you don't get any footage of or any viewings of, that's going to make it really, really difficult.
And you have less and less resources the further back you go. And like to have that info on the OHL kids for this upcoming year, you would have needed that, years back. So tricky, really tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Bettman misses getting booed during these remote sessions, or do you think
I think so.
the camera guys go for it?
No, I think he kind of misses it. I don't know, because he's got that grin.
Mm-hmm. He must have like a bonus in his contract, like a clause that,
If the booze hit a certain decibel level.
Yeah, they just add a 0 to the end of the check.
Oh yeah,
something like that. I'm excited. I think having a top 5 pick is just, it's somehow more exciting, but much more stressful.
Yeah. So we mentioned before, and we mentioned at the beginning of this stream, that the team, in order to get to playoff contention, we would argue needs 2 top 4 defensemen, and 2 more top 4 defensemen and 2 more top 6 wingers. Mm-hmm. Top 4 defensemen. You hope that Ryan Graves turns into that, or at least serves as a stopgap for one of the prospects to turn into that. Not even counting Smith, because I would consider him already there. If things work out and we do end up picking Hughes or Edmondson, I'm ready to put out the fires.
You have to duck when you say that, Ian.
Yeah, I'm getting ready for a tomato to be thrown. But if they pick a defenseman, whether it be Hughes, Edmondson, Clark, or somehow Power falls to 4, you're going to get someone that's projected as a top 4 guy. And top 6 guy, you're hoping, planning that Holtz steps into that role, maybe Mercer. Because we have to be realistic about these too, because as much as we like these, not all of them is going to work out, unfortunately. Sometimes. I don't get that vibe from Mercer. I don't even get that vibe from Holtz, but I'm trying not to be too much of a homer here.
Hard sometimes.
Yeah, it really is. So maybe they make a trade for one. We know it was reported that they were in with Arizona on Garland. Who knows? Maybe the Meyer thing is just speculation. I'm trying not to get too excited, so I'm downplaying that a little bit.
Yeah. We're close. I feel like we're getting
close. Yeah.
I was gonna say, like last year, the whole thing with players not getting their moment on stage was kind of sad. And like one of the best parts of the draft is seeing the families freak out in the stands when their kid gets called. I feel like we see more of that this year. Like when it's remote, just because like Hughes said he was going to have like 50 or 60 people at their house for the draft. And like you could bring that many people to the draft in the stands, but they're not with you. Like they're higher up. You have like your immediate family there, just because otherwise there wouldn't be enough room in the lower bowl. But like seeing Power there with like family and friends, I think is really cool.
Yeah, you get to see it turn into a real spectacle that wasn't really doable.
Yeah. Also interesting that last year Lafreniere's felt muted a little bit. Like it was him and his parents and either his sister or partner, and it just felt a little more like, controlled. It looks like Power's basically got a block party.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Let's be real here. Like if I was in that position, clearly I'm not, but if I was in that position of, being a potential first overall pick in the NHL draft, I would. Oh yeah, it would be a massive party.
Owen Power. There we are. Yeah, hugging the grandma. That's the move.
Okay. Stream's a little ahead of mine. That's fine. Okay. Smart.
Yeah, I mean it's a consensus pick. He's going to be good. He's got things that other people don't have. I think that's a good move by them. Maybe the safer move of the 2 or 3 that you could realistically do, but not a bad move at all. I thought the scouching video on Owen Power was interesting. Just seeing kind of some of the warts be exposed a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy. I mean, you would hope. Now, of course, with the whole expansion element, you'd think. I think we've seen get an insight into these player analysis, how these teams view their players and evaluate them. So it might be a little different, but I'd like to think that they uh, do more in their understanding of them than just like he's a big defenseman.
Yeah, big. That's the word of the day.
Yeah,
for sure. No, he's gonna be good. I like the way he moves. Buffalo just needs talent at this point. It's kind of sad to see them tearing things down a bit again. When Reinhardt and Eichel are gone, basically the last remnants of the last rebuild are out of there because Ristolainen's gone already. So, yeah, not a bad move by them.
Mm-hmm.
So number 2, Seattle. You're still thinking Beniers?
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling that. Well, I don't know, feeling, but I get that vibe.
From a progression standpoint, he might want to go back to Ann Arbor for one more year and hang on the campus, and they've got an amazing team. One of the best college teams ever assembled. But all that being said, he's played so much hockey.
Remember last year when Pronman leaked all the picks?
There were no fans. He didn't get the college experience last year. Frozen 4 in Boston.
Yeah, I'm sure people don't love him for that. What I'm going to do also is I'm going to boost the audio of the stream when they're actually making the picks.
There was a little bit of luck involved. Colin Miller got hurt. He got put up in a pairing with Troy Stetcher, and they couldn't take him off that second pairing. He was that good. By the end of it, he's playing all the high-leverage minutes. Every important situation for Gerard Gallant there. To go 0-3 and then win a gold with that guy as a key piece, that says a lot. Let's talk Seattle Kraken. We just had the expansion draft Wednesday night. Weeksy was there out there in Seattle, chucking and catching fish. Still stinks.
There's Seattle there. They're picking from the Space Needle, which I think is kind of fun. I gotta be honest, last year, the Devils picking at that podium with that background, I got a bit of like a Star Wars Empire vibe. You know?
Yeah, I could get that.
Very dark, serious, red.
And Matty Beniers has a lot of Ron Francis in his game in every situation play. Well, it was great when Weeksy came back and he said, I was talking to everybody there. He's the mayor here, he's the mayor everywhere. And he said, we want to create an identity. And how do you do that? You take a player like Matty Beniers, who is the representative of what a blue-collar town would be like. A guy who works both ends of the...
It's like, Seattle doesn't have an awful defense.
No, and I think the defense is competent enough that they could actually trade one of those guys and still be okay. Kind of recoup something. But they're up. They're on the clock now. I think they're going to make their pick.
Okay.
Kraken, Ron Francis will make the number 2 selection.
On behalf of Mr. David Bonderman and our entire ownership group, I'd like to thank the Commissioner and the 31 member clubs for welcoming the Seattle Kraken into the National Hockey League. And on behalf of our passionate fans, I'm proud to make a historical first ever amateur draft selection for our team by choosing from the University of Michigan, Matthew Beniers.
There it is. Matty Beniers. Big time, complete center. PK.
Beniers is the pick.
Solid.
Kind of as we thought,
Yeah. Yeah, not much to say about him. I mean, he's very good two-way center. Good, good complete game. Kind of reminds me a lot of a similar type as Nico Hischier, like a good just all-around guy that can kick pitch in offense when you need it, but just a really safe player to build a franchise around.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. Very, that's a foundational piece. Even if he tops out as a good second line center,
Yeah.
he's the sort of player you win with. Is kind of the hockey man lingo.
Yeah.
He's got that gumption,
Yeah. So when was the last time a team had the first and second overall pick in the draft came from one team. I think it might be. Well, no, because Drouin was a third overall pick.
Yeah, I was gonna say the
right?
Mooseheads would be close, but
Yeah,
I,
because the Mooseheads, that was what, McKinnon and Drouin. Yeah.
I don't know if that's been done. I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Like even the Jack Hughes draft, the U.S. like national program, Kako went second. Like even though they broke records, it wasn't 1-2.
Yeah, and Doc went third after that, so it was. Yeah. Yeah, I really want to see Kent Johnson go in the top 10 just so we could see 3 players from the same team picked in that. Just the amount of talent that Michigan is building, or U Michigan.
Oh yeah, it's insane. And like, you know, Luke Hughes joining next year for Devils fans.
Owen Power staying there.
Ethan Edwards, another mobile defenseman, is going there next season too. So it's gonna be a crowded blue line, actually.
A lot of high-end talent forwards-wise too. I mean, yeah.
You still thinking? Who are you thinking at 3? Edvinsson still?
I'm thinking it's going to be, I think either Edvinsson or I'm feeling Edvinsson, but it could be him or Eklund or Gunther.
Yeah, I get that feel too. And the closer we get to 4, the more nervous I get. I also assume those nerves are going to go away because the Devils are going to trade their second first-round pick, but we'll see. They tried to do that last year with the third, and just didn't work. Saw an interesting tweet from Brendan Ross. Back-to-back late birthdays go first and second. In a pandemic year, not too surprising. Comfort level there, and risk not as high. That's a good point.
Yeah. I don't have much to say about that.
No, it's like, oh yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Oh, they're really dropping commercials on us, huh?
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, I think Anaheim's tough, man. Like, I think Edvinsson isn't far off, but I could see them being really into. Yeah, like you said, Eklund or Gunther. Gunther, besides Zegras, would be really interesting as a finisher, to a really good playmaker. But Eklund's skill ceiling is probably higher, and like you said, he's more of a line driver. When you have more of those, you know, you can build up more depth on your team.
And it's all just going to depend on who they think is higher.
Yep.
Could it be Hughes? Yeah.
Yep. Sterling in the chat asked who Detroit should take at 6. Man, it's tough to say Detroit should do anything, just because I feel like they know better than us. I mean, everyone knows better than us. You know, we're just a couple guys from the internet, but I'd be really curious if they're into one of the goalies. You know, they seem like a team that would be brave enough to do that.
If I mean, I would have said that before the.
Oh, that's right.
Before the Nedeljkovic trade.
Mm-hmm.
I could see them going one or two ways. I mean, they do need centers. Like, they don't have many centers in their prospect pool. I mean, they've got Joe Veleno and Jonathan Berggren. I don't know how high they are in Rasmussen, but I could also see them, if Edvinsson is on the board by 6, I could see them definitely.
Oh yeah,
picking him there and try and solidify that possibility of a top pairing of Edvinsson and Moritz Seider.
The skating,
down the road.
the size.
Yeah, the skating, the size, the defensive capability.
That doesn't sound too bad.
Awfully tempting.
And they have some interesting forward prospects too, right? Like you mentioned, Rasmussen, Lucas Raymond, obviously last year. Joe Veleno was an interesting one too, who had a down year in his draft season, and I think they picked him up like 30th overall or something. And that's a kid that was a top 5 pick, 12 months previous. So really interesting.
And also, I mean, if you're into that, like, Edvinsson did play with the Frölunda system just like Lucas Raymond did.
Well, that's fair. They've seen a lot of them.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Also, just really cool to see people joining us from Germany, Australia, a few other places. I'm gonna just back off for a minute while Anaheim goes. I'm gonna boost.
I thought was awesome, but
sure.
For me, a Mason McTavish type player would be a great fit for them.
All right, well, the pick is in. Commissioner Gary Bettman, it's all yours.
From the Honda Center, with fans on the arena floor, the Anaheim Ducks selection, number 3, will be made by Executive Vice President and General Manager Bob Murray. Bob, you're up.
The Anaheim Ducks are proud with the 3rd pick of the 2021 draft. Happy and excited to draft from the Peterborough Pete's hockey team, Mason McTavish.
All right. No relation to Craig. I'm sure many of you are asking that the first question out of your mouths. But, boy, it's tough to pass up on a big
cool
center. This guy really
I
came
like
out
it.
of nowhere. He shot up the draft board, Sam.
He sure did. And I think about a couple of recent Bob Murray picks, and I think about Max Jones, plays with some belligerence. I think about Max Comtois, who
That's
has a
a
little
move.
bit of that with goal-scoring ability. And I think Mason McTavish is very much along those lines.
So, yeah, McTavish is a kid whose stock has risen dramatically over the past 6 months. Another one of those OHL kids went over to, what was it, Slovakia? No,
I think he was in the Swiss league.
Yeah, Swiss. That's right. He was
Because it was Brant Clark that went to Slovakia.
Right. His U18s were very good. Some of the best hair in the draft by far.
Yeah.
Really aggressive, two-way forward, skates really well. Not the biggest guy, but is one of those real like bulldog guys. He'll bulldoze through a couple defenders. There were rumors of him going top 6, maybe. That was another kind of Detroit possibility, but top 3 is very interesting.
Bob McKenzie had him as tied for 4th, right, on the TSN final rankings. Yeah.
So Devils-wise, they're presented.
So I would say this is a bit off the board.
Yeah.
Kind of, not really, but still.
A little bit.
A little off the board. Definitely not what we were expecting.
So the Devils are looking at Hughes, Gunther, Eklund, Edvinsson, maybe Clark.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the pick. I think it's going to be Hughes.
All right, I'm just going to boost the audio through to the New Jersey pick.
You know, he's got the round hair going and the curls. Don't be fooled.
Eklund
this guy
is right there.
Power forward extraordinaire.
All right, New Jersey Devils. Speak of the Devils, they are on the clock now, and now the intrigue starts. They have a Hughes brother. They have Jack, who they took 1st overall. Will brother Luke join him? Luke is a defenseman. He's now the tallest of the 3, had a very late growth spurt recently. So this real skilled defenseman, wonderful skater, now also adds a little bit of a reach in his game, which can certainly add any defender's plus rating there.
Yeah, and I like it because he's so young. So that means the ceiling is higher for this player. And I love what he said to us in the interviews. He was talking about, hey, you guys are talking about Owen Power and this and that. What about me? What about me a year older? I love the confidence, the swagger he brings to the table. You watch him play. He plays with some of that, and you need that to be successful in the NHL.
He's got a little Brady Tkachuk goofiness to him, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, I like that, too. I'm with you. I could deal with that because those guys, they believe in themselves, and I have to say this. What they've been able to do at the NDTP is create players, and they've done an outstanding job of helping develop a lot of these young men become young men, but also help them facilitate their development on the ice. It's been a factory right now, and I really think of the Hughes brothers, not only is he the tallest, I might say that he's probably the most balanced in terms of his game. He's not all offense, Gortz. He likes to defend as well.
And he's gotten better every year. I know he got hurt this year, but all indications were from last year to this year is huge strides, and his overall game, his thinking process, playing physical, everything he can do, in addition to being, from the Hughes family. So.
And do you take the best player here, Jeff, as we look at the prospects from the New Jersey Devils, or do you complement what you already have? It's got to be a tough decision, I imagine, because you want to take the best guy. You need great players.
Yeah. Sometimes this high, you get a little bit, it can be tantalizing to go for something and
That's
need.
the saddest picture of Alexander Holtz I've ever seen.
Best player, who's going to be the best in 5 years, that's going to serve you the best.
Devils missed the playoffs the last 3 seasons, 8 of the last 9. And currently these are the best available players. And really, we really could hear any name announced right now, couldn't we, Sam?
Yeah, we kind of figured that after the second pick that things would get a little wild. I'm pretty confident that the top 10 players will remain the top 10 players, but the order, we're already seeing it shaking up here a little bit with McTavish going third. What a rise to prominence for that young man.
And Michigan had the first 2 players taken in this draft with Power and Beniers. Hughes on his way to Michigan, so they could have 3 out of 4 as the Devils get set to make their pick as the time winds down. Any preference for you, Weeksy, as you look at the prospects available, wingers and defensemen?
It's hard not to pass up Luke Hughes for sure, for so many different reasons. I can also make a case for Brandt Clarke, though. If you're looking for an offensive defenseman out of Barrie, I know the skating isn't necessarily the most fluid in terms of his stride, but he's instant offense. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them either go Luke Hughes or Brandt Clarke here. What about you, Gortz?
Well, there's a lot of different options, right? There's different kind of defensemen. Edvinsson, the Swede, is pretty talented, too, be a good pick. It's probably maybe a little too high for the goalie talk, but there is a little, there's some, Gunther's pretty good. There's some options here.
Yeah, William Eklund as well could play with Jack Hughes. True. He's a sick winger. Commissioner Gary Bettman will introduce the Devils.
From the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, obviously at a viewing party, the Executive Vice President and General Manager, Tom Fitzgerald, will make the 4th selection in the 2021 NHL Draft. Tom, the floor is yours.
It's great to see everybody here finally live at the Prudential Center.
Here we go.
I want to thank all our staff behind me for all their tireless work they've put in this last 2 years. With the 4th overall pick, the New Jersey Devils are proud to pick from the USA Development Program, Luke Hughes.
There it is. Remember, he sustained that lacerated tendon in his foot in March. He got cut by a skate. He missed the 2021 U18s on his way to Michigan to join that star-studded cast. So he'll have plenty of insulation around him in terms of talent and obviously driven personality.
Can't go wrong with it.
I can breathe.
Yeah.
Oh, look at Jack, man. Oh, that's so good. That's so fun. Yeah, that's the pick, man. That's the choice for sure. He's exactly what they need.
Mm-hmm. To be quite honest, I mean, the Devils are lacking in their kind of right shot defenseman side on the prospect pool, but I don't like this. This was the right pick here. I'm not really too concerned about handedness either, if we're getting into that discussion. But
oh man, Jack's so happy. I love it. I've never seen him like that. The only time I've seen him show that much emotion was that interview where Ty Smith jumped on his back, basically.
Yeah, this is really, this is going to be a treat to watch. I think if Devils fans are looking for a timeline, I think 2 years at Michigan is fair. Yeah. And that's not just because Quinn spent 2 years at Michigan.
Yeah, 2 years I think makes a lot of sense. Yeah, just because he's so young, right? Like he's basically got a year of development behind guys like Beniers or Power, but his upside is sky high. Also, can you
one of the highest in the draft?
Yeah, agreed. How awkward would it have been with all those people with the Hughes 2 signs literally right in front of Tom Fitzgerald. If it was like, Edvinson, there'd be one guy clapping. Yeah. That's it.
I still think it would have been one of the cruelest older brother pranks if they went and they had Jack go out there and announce the pick and it wasn't Luke. Awful. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about Luke Hughes.
Yeah, I'm gonna post a link in the chat. We did a video of highlights of Luke, and it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, actually, you know what? We have him for pretty much all the prospects that have been drafted so far, and we are lucky enough to not only be joined by Devils fans. So if we're able to, why don't we just share all of them so far as they get picked, if that's okay. Looking sharp, and he's got the 86 on.
Also, just wanted to shout out, we have someone joining us from Malaysia, Germany. I think we've got
Belgium, Russia.
Really, really cool to see. Thanks for joining us, guys.
New Jersey.
Yeah, I assumed a few from New Jersey. Yeah. Who's next then? It seems like things.
See, this is where it gets interesting.
Yeah. McTavish going 3, I think.
Really throws it for a loop.
Yeah.
Again, Eklund is there. Does Columbus take a big defenseman to try and, quote, replace their big defenseman?
I think
that they just traded away.
I think that's probably the way they're going to go. Not just because of the Seth Jones thing, but they now have how many extra first-round picks this season? You can take some pretty big swings on forwards later on in the first rounds. There are like the big 4 defensemen, and then there's Kuhlmans and maybe Carson Lambos. But beyond them, there's not a ton of definite first-round defenders. But there's a huge swath of really high-skill forwards you can choose from. If you take Edvinson now, it's completely reasonable. And he's a fantastic prospect in their system. And then with your other first-round picks, just swing for the fences on high-skill forwards. That's a pretty good draft.
Yeah. What do they have? They have 4 first-round picks?
Yeah, after the Seth Jones trade, because they got 1 for Savard and 1 for Foligno.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to pump it.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. On behalf of our ownership group, led by John McConnell, our staff, coaches, and players, I want to thank all the great fans here tonight at Nationwide Arena. Thank you. Fifth line, it's great to see you again. To make our first pick in the 2021 National Hockey League Draft, I would like to introduce a great and longtime fan of the Blue Jackets, an Ohio guy, a former captain of the Ohio State Buckeyes, and one of the best broadcasters in the business, ESPN's own Kirk Street.
JD, how are you, man? I wish I could be there. I know how the fifth line can get fired up, and some great memories in that arena. And I get back as often as I can, and looking to get back even more this year coming up. But I know it's great to have you back, part of the organization, and helping us rebuild and look forward to trying to get back to the postseason. Exciting time. This young man's name I'm about to read is about to play for the most passionate and loyal fan base, I think, in the NHL. So with the 5th pick in the 2021 NHL Draft, the Columbus Blue Jackets select center Kent Johnson, University.
Wow. This guy is sick. He had some Sports Center top 10 highlights last year. He's got an elite brain. Those highlights reminded me of Patrick Kane of a couple times, and he's 6'1", real slight, not ready yet. He's got to get in the weight room, do some squats and lunges and deadlifts. But, man, this guy can be dirty at times.
Wow, surprised?
Love it. Yeah, it looks like they were really zeroing in on a center there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kent Johnson as a center would be really intriguing. Really high skill. Yeah, I'm a little shocked, to be honest, just because my opinion on the players may be just a little lower than some, but really high skill. I think that's a really exciting pick for them.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm really, really high on this kid. Like, I think if he puts it all together, he has the highest potential in this draft class. And I know we're going to disagree on that, and that's okay.
No, it's fine. Hey, that's what this is for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's a really intriguing start to kind of, I don't know if you call it a rebuild or a retool or whatever, but really solid prospect. Really exciting too. Like, just the way he moves, really slippery. There are a couple kind of undersized guys that are slippery as well later in the draft, a few in the WHL, but he's got the size and the speed to really make it work for him. Really cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
So now's the wild card.
Way to go, Michigan. 3 players in the top 5.
Wow.
And 4 if you count a Michigan commit.
That's right. I hadn't considered that, actually. Yeah, that's really cool.
So I'm trying to think of other players that are committed to Michigan out of this class. There's, is Pastajov? Yeah, Pastajov is committed there, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. And
speaking of swinging for the fences, Sasha Pastajov is a phenomenal late first-round pick. He's going to drop because of his skating, but points-wise and skill-wise, top of the draft for sure. So Detroit is the wild card. I saw a couple guesses in chat. Goalie.
Looks like I gotta fix my mic here. They could go Gunther. That would be a great choice. They could go. I think it would probably be in their best interest to pick someone else, just because I'm honestly not very high on picking a goalie high in the first round. But that's just yeah. Or they could swing and go Edvinsson. I'm still really high on Edvinsson.
Well, listen, the pathway to having him and Sider together, it's there. Sorry, I think my mic might be echoing here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that fixes it.
Cool.
Yep. All right. It's the guy in the gray shirt. That's me. All good now. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, Edvinsson to Detroit would be like. I know they need high skill forwards. They need basically everything, but him and Sider are elite prospects at that position.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still can't believe McTavish went third.
Yeah, I here's why I didn't think of that. I didn't think that they would pick him because maybe for some reason I thought that they were just satisfied with what's his name, building around Zegras.
Mm-hmm.
But it's clearly a smart move. Like, Zegras is, we already know how talented Zegras is. But hey, getting a 1-2 punch of Zegras and McTavish, I think you're in a really good position.
Yeah, and 1-2 punch for sure. Very stylistically different,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes that's what you want for sure. JTS in the chat asked what we think about Matt Coronado and the Blue Jackets maybe picking them as one of those kind of later first round streams or swings rather. Love Coronado. Really, really exciting player. Really good production. Destroyed the USHL this year.
Yeah, great. I mean, if anything, like we know he brings a good goal scoring, but if at the very least it doesn't transfer for some reason, he's going to be one of the hardest working guys on the ice. At the very least, he's going to will his way to the NHL.
Also, I may have just figured out our mic echo problem. But we're all good.
Thinking about it too much right now. Just trying to
play
enjoy the
power
night.
movie.
So I think that's
Sounds
something I'll
good.
worry about later.
Well, you got a lot of people there to celebrate with you, so I'm sure it'll be quite a party. The Sabres fan base is one of the most passionate in hockey. A message for them before you go, because they are excited to see you eventually don their sweater.
Yeah, I'm just super excited to be a part of the franchise and ready to get going.
All right, congratulations. Enjoy the night.
Yeah, thank you.
Hear the emotion in his voice. First-time USHL alumnus have gone 1-2 in the NHL draft. So now the Red Wings are on the clock at Little Caesars Arena. That's where they are convening for their draft room. As Steve Yzerman, what does he do? Where does he go? Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Joining Steve Yzerman, Executive Vice President and General Manager of the Detroit Red Wings, to make the number 6 pick is 10-year-old Harold Washington Jr. Harold represents the thousands of children in the city of Detroit who are experiencing the joys of learning hockey through the Red Wings Learn, Play, Score program. Harold, take it away.
Harold?
With the 6th pick in the 2021 NHL Draft, the Detroit Red Wings are proud to select
From Frölunda, Sweden, defenseman Simon Edvinsson.
Go Red Wings!
Way to go, Harold. Way to go, Stevie Y. So, boy, a big, strong, dynamic Swedish defenseman. Stevie Y probably had some good memories with a Swedish defenseman teammate.
Who would that be? Nick Lidstrom, perhaps? Hall of Famer, absolute stud? Wow. So when it comes to Simon Edvinsson,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about the guy who's got size, he's got reach. Some are worried about the
Makes
offensive
sense.
upside he's going to bring to the table.
Yeah, great pick for them. Like we said, that defensive core is looking real nice now. Yeah, probably the most controversial player in the top, tier of 9 guys. Just because, like we talked about earlier in the show, decision making can sometimes be a question mark. But the skating is just top tier. The way he moves is just so smooth.
Of those guys that we would consider the top 4 for defensemen in this draft, Edvinsson was the most intriguing for me because he has very immense upside. But he's probably the most raw and unpolished of that group.
Yeah, I think
So he's got all the tools. He's got the reach, the skating. The skating is phenomenal. It's just that if he can be more assertive, and we kind of saw that there was a change like halfway through the season between his different league play, that he started to put it together, and he looked like the defenseman that he could turn into.
Mm-hmm.
And he had the potential to be. So you're banking long here.
Yeah, it's a long play for sure. He's not playing next year. One interesting thing I heard on a couple different podcasts was the idea that he may have been less engaged when he got sent down, like if he was playing at the junior level or even Allsvenskan. But when he got called up to the SHL, he was really dialed in. And even though he didn't get a ton of minutes, the skills he saw there were really encouraging. So, it's just going to take him some time, but really solid skills. I mean, he's big. He skates, just so smoothly. He's going to be a really good player.
And I think he's already mentioned that he plans on staying in Sweden for at least next year, right?
Yeah.
Did I see that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
which is the right move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard an interview with Goran Stube, who's the European director of NHL Central Scouting, talking about how some Swedish guys feel a lot of pressure to leave early, just because it's in a time when you need to be making a jump to like the professional level and like really refining your skills. Jumping into an entirely new type of hockey and size of rink kind of diminishes that. So if you stay where you're comfortable but really push yourself in terms of quality of competition, you're really going to improve. I might bump this one up too. This is Matty Beniers.
What do you remember about your interview process?
And
with
for
them?
the chat, no, Sider is actually a right shot defenseman.
Yeah,
so they don't have to line up exactly on the same pair, but they have that potential.
You know, Ron was great. Jerry Fortin, you know, just being in interviews with those guys, I felt extremely comfortable. You know, they were awesome. It felt like a real conversation. You know, I thought we had a pretty good connection. All the times we talked were great. So I was just so excited that they picked me, and I'm going to be Seattle Kraken.
Well, Ron said you could probably play for that team tomorrow if you wanted to. You've got some decisions. Owen Power, your teammate at school, goes first. Kent's expected to go in the top 10. How special was it to share this experience with them, and how much did you guys talk leading up to tonight?
Yeah, I mean, we actually talked a good amount today, just FaceTiming and stuff. I mean, I think it's so unbelievable watching them get drafted. I think it was just as happy as it was for Owen and me and Luke, you know, all of us. It's so cool. Just watching now, I just seeing Kent just got picked. So cool, so happy for him. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss of words right now and just so excited for my teammates and kind of what's next.
Well, you can tell the bond is genuine and special. I'm sure that group chat's going to be fire tonight. Enjoy the celebration, and congratulations again on becoming a member of the Seattle Kraken.
Thank you so much.
Very nice house.
Yes.
See that window?
Yeah.
Really curious to see what happens now, just because there are two players, both forwards, that I'm not sure teams past Detroit or even I don't know if the San Jose Sharks really expected both Eklund and Gunther to be on the board.
Makes me wonder though. I mean, I think those would be the right picks, to be quite honest. Either of those guys. I don't know them enough to know what's in their goalie pipeline.
Is it bad that I just assume the Sharks need everything? Just given their situation. You know, they're locked into their contracts for a while. So a goalie pick would be interesting just because they take longer to marinate. You pick the elite guy now. He sits there for a couple of years, and as you start to build out, he's ready.
Mm-hmm.
Could be interesting.
Yeah. I don't think they'll end up going goalie here. I think they pick Gunther here, if anything. Let's see how wrong I get.
Yeah. Quite a few Sharks fans in the chat too.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's a good one for you guys.
Yeah. Eklund would be a phenomenal pick as well.
All right, here we go.
Will be made by the San Jose Sharks. From the SAP Center is Doug Wilson Jr., Director of Scouting. Doug, the floor is yours.
The San Jose Sharks are proud to select from Djurgården, Sweden, William Eklund.
There you go. Was that booyah in Swedish? I'm not sure what he said. It did sound.
I read that way.
Yeah. Well, he's a slippery winger, tons of skill, 5'10", but he really competes down low, Sam. This is a guy you just expect is going to be at least good in the NHL.
From the start of the year to the end of the year, he's been the most improved player in Europe. And of all these great Swedish players, they bounce between leagues, the under-20, the Allsvenskan. This guy remained the entire season in the SHL. And that's saying something when you've had shutdowns at various levels.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think really high skill player. Yeah, they're gonna love him. Like, he's a guy that could have gone top 3 easily. So getting him, later in the top 10, I think is just a coup for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, what Eklund brings is he's one of the smartest players in the draft. He's a line driver. So what that means is he'll drive play, he'll gain the offensive zone, he'll shoulder those heavy offensive zone entry responsibilities, and he's got great vision. I think he also mentioned that he might probably be spending the next year in Sweden. He was one that I could see immediately stepping into the NHL, but I'm quite a fan of quote unquote, over marinating these prospects.
Yeah, his skating is like, he could step into the NHL tomorrow, and his skating would still be above average. Like, he's that good. But yeah, sometimes good to stay home, just refine your game. He'll take on a bigger, more consistent role in Djurgården. Yeah. It's going to be sad to see him separated from Holtz, though, gotta say.
Yeah. I mean, he also, one thing to note about Eklund was that he had a very strange year when it came to injuries, and he had an appendectomy, a strange unreported injury. Apparently he got COVID. So it was a very rough year for him.
Yeah. One of the people in our chat is neighbors with Eklund.
That's awesome.
Love it. Say hi for us. Yeah. All right, who's next? Is it LA?
Yeah, it's LA, I think. Yeah, LA, then Arizona, then Ottawa. I don't know why I'm having trouble remembering the teams this year.
I'm also surprised not to see many deals so far. Not necessarily trading picks, like moving up or down, but just other deals. But let's boost the
We'll make
here.
the 8th selection in the 2021 NHL Draft for the Los Angeles Kings. Chris, you're up.
With the 8th pick in the 2021 NHL Draft, the LA Kings are proud to select from the Barrie Colts of the OHL, Brandt Clarke.
That's our 4th D-man in 8 selections. Look at Brandt. He cannot believe it. We kind of had him slotted here, Sam. You thought this was the organization for this right-handed shooting defenseman.
If you look at Chris Byrne, the gentleman who just made the pick, he lives in the Ottawa area, and so too do the Clarks. So he'd be more familiar with Clarke than maybe anyone and have that intimate knowledge about this particular player. So he goes to the Barrie Colts. They're a young team. He can kind of run and gun and do his thing. Very good at it. It goes back to the year before that, under 16 with the Don Mills Flyers. Rockstar team. We're going to hear more about that group. Shane Wright next year. Francesco Arcuri. You're looking at Brendan Othman.
I think this is kind of a perfect pick for LA.
Seems like an LA pick for sure. Yeah. Also, I love seeing people that emotional when they get picked. Yeah. That's why I watch this thing.
And is that his Slovakian League team jersey on the wall behind him? Yeah. I mean, LA has one of, if not the best prospect pools in the league, so they can definitely take a gamble. I don't even know if I'd call it a gamble because we know how skilled Clarke is.
Yeah, and forward heavy prospect group, I'd say, with at least some of the really high end guys. Adding Brandt Clarke immediately gives you like a really good scoring punch from the back end.
Yeah. I mean, they've got some good pieces coming up in like Brock Faber. We like Helge Grans, Bjorn Fott as well. But this is a very good pick.
Yeah, I don't quite at Brandt's level. Mm-hmm. So Arizona next. they've got to be really excited to make it to the top 10.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure about Arizona. Like, all the big four defensemen are gone.
Mm-hmm.
Who of the top kind of 9 group are left at this point?
I mean,
Gunther?
Gunther's still on the board.
I wonder if Arizona's a wild card to take a goalie. so someone said poor Gunther in the chat. Yeah, you could say that. That's funny. Great player, though. Really excited for that Brant Clark pick, actually. I think he's going to be a really good fit there.
Yeah.
He's at least 1 year away, right? Maybe
I'd say
2?
so. Yeah. I'd say 1. I mean, again, like it how much can you improve on your skating? Because like, his skating has always been like that wonkiness. But he's always made it work. Whatever level he's played at, he's made it work.
Mm-hmm.
So is that going to fly in the NHL? I don't know. But we know that he's got the skill, the puck handling skills, the intelligence. I think he can make it work.
Yeah, agreed. And, being on a team with Quentin Byfield or Alex Turcotte probably doesn't help, or doesn't hurt either, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Arizona. I'd be surprised if it wasn't Gunther, just based on that kind of tiering. There's like that solid group of top 9 guys. We haven't seen any real wild cards yet in terms of going outside of that group. Certainly the order of it with McTavish was the first surprise, but also I can't get over how soon Columbus is going to come up again.
Sorry, are they again?
They're at 12.
They're at 12,
which is actually
Jeez.
11 with Arizona. How is that? How do you think that gets recorded? You're picked 12th with the 12th overall selection, but you're the 11th player picked. Are you still 12th overall?
I would personally do it that way.
Kind of sucks if you're going for clout.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
You lose one spot. Yeah. Favorite pick so far? Obviously, other than the Devils, because we tend to be biased about that. But...
Other than the Devils. Jeez. Now I got to think about teams other than the Devils. I like Eklund to San Jose.
Yeah.
I'd say that would be my
That's
favorite
probably
one
the
so
biggest
far.
value pick for me too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just extremely skilled. The way he moves is just incredible. Yeah, he's a good one. I always got that West Coast vibe from him too, for some reason. In terms of, we got a question in chat from JTS about the Blue Jackets trade with Seth Jones and Adam Boqvist in particular. I think that trade's a huge win for Columbus.
It's kind of funny timing on that too, because we were just talking before we started up about how, I don't know, we kind of think that, it looks like they're going to be doing it pick 12th and 13th.
Yeah. Okay.
We kind of got the impression that Boqvist didn't exactly get his chance with Chicago. That could be for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a pause on that while Arizona goes.
Will make the 9th selection in the 2021 NHL Draft for the Arizona Coyotes. Darryl, you're up.
The Arizona Coyotes are proud to select from the Edmonton Oil Kings, Dylan Gunther.
Good one to get at number 9. Big, strong kid, and what do you like about Dylan Gunther, Sam?
I think he slipped a little bit because people were watching the under-18s and only saw him put up 7 points in 7 games, and they said, hey, what's going on here? You just came from the WHL where you had 24 points in 12 games. But the story is a lot different than that. You play for Brad Lauer, who he does with the Edmonton Oil Kings. Dave Barr for Canada at the under-18s. Both guys...
Yeah, that's the pick. Top 9 is the top 9, I guess.
Yeah, good.
One of the best goal scorers in the draft, for sure. He's also a really interesting case study into the whole conundrum of this draft where, people think these kids have been underscouted, which is true in one sense that, like, for example, Dylan Gunther played 12 league games this season. Only 12. And then he went to the U18s and that was it. It's like, yeah, you haven't seen a ton of them. But I feel like at the same time, the kids are also somewhat over-scouted. It's like the amount of scrutiny per game on Dylan Gunther's WHL play is like through the roof, just because you only have 12 games in your sample size. So
we saw that exact thing happen with Chikrin.
Exactly, yeah, with the injury, for sure. It's like if you have 1 or 2 bad nights over the course of a 60 or 80 game schedule, that's less of a big deal. But if you only have 12 league games and, you get sick for a week and you bomb 2 or 3 games, that completely changes your upside. So in a way, I feel like Gunther's game has been picked apart a little more, perhaps, than in a normal year, just because of that. It's really tough to get a read when you only have 12 games.
Now Ottawa's on the clock right now, and it's kind of funny because when they were in a better draft position, as in like worse in the standings, I think Gunther would have been a perfect fit for them. But now that we've established how wrong this mock draft is, I had Ottawa taking Wallstedt. I'm sorry to our Swedish viewers if I butchered that name. I probably did.
I'm sure they'll forgive you. Yeah, Ottawa was one of those spots that people kept on bringing up the idea of a goalie. There's some outlets or teams apparently that have Sebastian Cossa above Wallstedt, which is interesting. Another WHL guy, but I think Wallstedt's probably more the consensus number 1 goalie. I would not be surprised to see them go this way, just because they have, they have Stützle, they have Jake Sanderson. Next position, if you're trying to lock in your foundation for the next 10 years, you could do worse than Jesper Wallstedt.
Yeah, and if you want to go back to the discussion about draft history, scouting history, Wallstedt has been on the radar for years. Yeah. But also, that somebody bring it up in the chat. Like Cole Sillinger is also a very Pierre Dorian pick right here.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ottawa's one of those teams that I feel like makes very good moves and then sometimes very questionable moves. Like their drafting recently has been very good.
Yeah, fantastic drafting.
And drafting Jake Sanderson, I think, was a really great move. One of those picks that is maybe less exciting than some of the other options that were on the board, but as like a foundational piece, you absolutely need a player that plays like Jake Sanderson.
Agreed. He's going to be a really fun player to watch. A really good player to watch.
Agreed. Why don't we listen to Ron Francis for a bit?
Yeah, sounds good.
We talk so much about the on-ice product, the skill set, what they can do. What kind of a character does Matt Beniers have?
Well, he's got the highest character. Comes from a solid family. Both his parents were engineering students at Cornell University. His dad went on to build a company. His mom, I think, was performing on Broadway. His brother and sister are both doing very successful in their relative fields. And not many times when you're interviewing a kid for the NHL draft did he tell you he's doing pre-med in college. So obviously a very bright kid and someone that's determined. So we're excited to have him part of our team.
Yeah, pre-med, no easy feat. And I hear he has a performance gene too, so maybe Jerry Bruckheimer will be excited for him. Thanks for this, Ron. I appreciate it, and best of luck the rest of the way.
Thank you, Jackie. Take care.
Great stuff, Jackie. So the Ottawa Senators on the clock. They've been retooling, restocking. Jeff, here the last.
Yeah. So Ottawa next, and then Columbus, Calgary, and then Buffalo again. Second Buffalo pick's going to be interesting too. Again, that's the sort of thing where you have a bit more freedom to swing for the fences. Like we saw the Devils do that last year. They got Holtz, they got Mercer, and then they took a big swing on the defenseman Mook Madulin. Buffalo for a goalie could be interesting too. Oh, here we go.
Pierre Dorion will be making the 10th selection in the 2021 NHL Draft. Pierre?
Thank you. I would just like to say a hi to all our fans watching on TV. J'aimerais juste saluer tous nos partisans regardant à la télévision. We can't wait to see you again on October 14th. The Ottawa Senators are proud to select. Les Sénateurs d'Ottawa sont fiers de choisir from the USA National Team Development Program, Tyler Boucher. From the USA National Team Development Program, Tyler Boucher.
That's awesome.
Whoa, how about those apples? ESPN's Brian Boucher, his son Tyler, committed to Boston University. They've compared him to Josh Anderson. Any team could use a player who got some skill and got some snarl, eh?
No doubt. What we're finding here is that the general manager, Pierre Dorion, is in exact lockstep with the...
Wow, that's
interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
So, okay, I'm not going to lie about this. I think this is definitely off the board, higher than I would have. I think we could have kind of see this coming with like the emphasis that's been placed on, grit and muscle. Because like Boucher he's the premier power forward in this draft. The other one, I would say, McTavish plays a mean game, but like not like Boucher. It's a bit different. The other premier power forward, a step below Boucher, would be Chase Stillman. So he's a name to watch. I think he would probably go in the second round, but
yeah, I had Tyler Boucher 44th on my list.
Okay.
I think Bob McKenzie had him around 30s or 40s, at least in his midseason rankings. I don't recall his most recent ones, but yeah, good player.
Very good, yeah.
Big swing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the first real surprise of the evening. Like McTavish at 3 for sure, but in terms of the player itself, yeah, that's definitely a jump. But again, like we said, their scouting has been very good recently. Makes me more willing to give them the benefit of the doubt just from a consensus perspective.
Yeah, and also Boucher played 12 games this season, just very few games as well.
Yeah.
Still definitely an off the board pick, but
yeah, sometimes those work out, Yeah, interesting pick from Ottawa. And Columbus up next. They do not look super energized, if I'm honest. Yeah, at this point, I think we've seen that the consensus rankings are not necessarily going to be the most useful, but I feel like a goalie for them, yeah, could be interesting, especially with 4 first-round picks this year. There was some talk that neither goalie was going to be available after 12. And so far, they're both still on the board. So here we go.
With Columbus's second first-round pick in the 2021 NHL Draft, General Manager Jarmo Kekalainen will make the selection. Jarmo?
Good evening, Fifth Line. Thank you for your support through a tough season that we had. We really appreciate it. With the 12th overall selection the Columbus Blue Jackets are proud to select from Sioux Falls Stampede, the USHL, Cole Sillinger.
There you go. There's Mike Sillinger. Pops. This is a good player, man. He's just born to do it. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
You could see him playing with Kent Johnson one day in Columbus. Jeff, this just seemed like the right pick at the right time, didn't it?
It does, right? Again, makes sense. They go for a really high-end skill player in Kent Johnson, and they back it up with another center down the middle that's hard to play against, that can score goals, has a laser of a shot. His dad played, 2,000 games, right? And for 24 teams. He's been in the league a long time, so that's...
Well, yeah, you called it, Ian, in terms of Sillinger's value as a center, especially one that can score. Earlier than I thought he would go, but over the last week, as I've consumed too many hockey podcasts, they all mentioned that he was someone that was going to be a hot commodity just because of the position, his scoring ability, and yes, his father was also an NHL player, and that seems or tends to matter when it comes to the draft.
They love their bloodlines.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, not surprised there. A lot of centers going so far.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get over the fact that a goalie hasn't gone yet.
Yeah.
Which makes me think there's going to be a trade soon. Like some team that's sitting around 20 that didn't think they would have a shot at Kosa or Wallstedt is going to jump up and take them.
Yeah. I mean, Edmonton's starting to sweat right now.
Yeah, where are they at in the order?
20.
20? Yeah. See, that's the...
Or, 19, but 20 technically.
Yeah, let's see if we can call that one. But...
Yeah. And just in case anyone missed it, the reason why they just skipped over the 11th pick was because Arizona was caught basically doing physical combine testing for prospects last year or so. It was last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you're only supposed to really do physical testing at the actual draft combine, but they were caught doing that outside of the boundaries of rules.
Mm-hmm.
And they got hit with a hefty fine.
Yeah, probably the biggest hockey consequence was losing this first round pick, especially the year that they gave away their first round pick to the Devils for Taylor Hall. So a bit of a messy piece of business there.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why that's such a big deal, the testing, because it might not sound like a serious thing, is that these prospects are already bombarded with things like questionnaires or interviews by teams that are trying to get to know them. So if you add on top of that, every team asking them to do a physical, to go through a workout, the strain on a prospect's year is just too much. So they really try to protect them that way, even though they definitely do get bombarded with questionnaires and psych evals and stuff.
Lots of interviews throughout the year.
Mm-hmm. And even like informal ones too, like a scout just at the rink going up to them after a practice or after a game, and that like psychological effect of knowing that there's like 6 scouts in the audience just during a practice, it's that can take a toll too. Ooh, Boucher, that's a big shock, I think.
I mean, I want to say that, like, given the trends around the league, it's not too surprising, but even at 10, that's a bit spicy.
Very spicy, indeed.
Let's see, he's a Harvard commit?
I don't actually know that. I know Coronado's committed to Harvard.
Boston University.
Very interesting. Mon in chat basically saying that the reason why Arizona was so keen to make that trade with Vancouver is they wanted to get back into the first round and just have picks in general, because they made the risky choice to go all in on Taylor Hall.
Mm-hmm.
didn't really get them where they wanted to be. So now, on top of the fine, they just need to do a lot of work to restock their cupboard because they're not a great team now, but they also didn't have picks, which is probably the worst place to be, which is basically where the Devils were in 2014, 2015.
Yeah. Wouldn't wish that on any franchise.
Those were some dark years,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, good for them. Arizona's doing well for themselves. Not sure Gunther looked the most excited of all the prospects, but
Oh no, we're gonna do that.
no, we shouldn't.
Like the zoom in on McDavid's face when the
That's too much. But was very cool to see Luke. I think Jack was more excited than Luke to be drafted by that he was drafted by the Devils.
It seems weird because that's been connected. You know, Luke, that connection has always been there since the Devils started playing terribly, which is maybe 2 weeks into the season.
You got to give him more credit than that. It might have been 3.
Yeah, 3 weeks. Yeah.
No, it's true. That's been the underlying storyline for sure.
Yeah.
Looks like we might see Calgary soon. Calgary, I have no idea. I couldn't tell you.
Honestly, Liesel is he strikes me as a Calgary pick.
Yeah.
Do they need a goalie though?
I think they need everything.
General
Here we
Manager
go.
Brad Treliving will be joined by Ted Button, the Director of Amateur Scouting. Brad, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gary. The Calgary Flames are proud to select with our first pick in the 2021 NHL Draft from the Clark Cup champion Chicago Steel, Matthew Coronado.
There you go. On his way to Harvard University to play for Teddy Donato. He's up there in Livonia, Michigan. 13th overall. Right-handed shot. Got a little sandpaper to his game as well, doesn't he, Sam?
He sure does. He's like a bulldog. He's a dog on a bone. Loose pucks, he's going to get after it because he likes to play with it. And why wouldn't you? When you score 48 goals to lead the USHL and no one is within 16.
Yeah.
16 goals behind is the next guy.
Great pick.
So Coronado, like many goal scorers, the good foundation is created by playing lacrosse. I think about Steven Stamkos. I think about John Tavares. As young players.
Agreed.
He's definitely one of those players that, like, and I'll sound really corny saying this, but you watch them play a shift or so, and it's just such a very easy player to like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just put a link to our Coronado video in the chat. One thing that Calgary Flames fans are going to find out in the next 2 to 3 hours is Coronado's nickname from the play-by-play guys in the USHL is the Bison, because he kind of charges through layers of defense. It kind of makes sense, but the way they say it is just phenomenal. So if you're curious at all, even just listen to the first 60 seconds in that link I put in chat. It's incredible. They make that gimmick all the time, but really, really good player. He's going to Harvard next year. I think he scored, what was it? It was almost a goal per game across the season in the playoffs in the USHL, which is just nuts. And he's not necessarily doing that on pure skill. It's how hard he works to get into high-scoring areas, especially for a guy who's, shorter than 6 foot. He really, really pushes the pace.
Yeah, love it.
But the Bison is potentially the greatest junior hockey commentary I've ever heard.
Also, as a, I thought that he would actually end up getting picked by the Rangers with their 16th overall pick.
Yeah, I was hoping he wouldn't be. I mean,
Yeah.
just from a Devils perspective, we tend to have that focus. But yeah, fantastic player. 4 months ago, the idea of him going 13th was kind of off the board. But as he kind of developed in the playoffs in particular, really kind of cemented his profile as a first rounder, especially higher in the first round. Let's get this Hughes interview here.
Sitting in these exact same seats, the dream of playing together with one of your brothers in the NHL. What is the reality like?
Yeah, I mean, it's dream come true, and I'm super happy, super excited to play with Jack, and you know, someday hopefully play with Quinn too. So, you know, I'm super excited to be a Devil.
Your grandmother Penny said she had never seen you so happy, Jack. What did you feel when you heard that announcement?
Yeah, it's an awesome. It's a great pick for our team. Getting a great player, but I'm proud older brother right now, so I'm very excited.
So Quinn, take me into the conversation. So after the Ducks made their pick, what were you saying to each other here?
I just think we weren't sure if he was going there or not. Of course, everyone wanted him to go there, and I was kind of just telling him, like, if you don't go there, don't worry about it. Like, the rink stinks anyways. And of course, thinking, really excited, I want him to go there. But like Jack said, I think they made a great pick, first of all, for the team, first and foremost. I think he's going to really help them. And then, of course, the brother dynamic. I mean, I'm a little jealous, and I'm super excited for them. So it's, really cool, really special.
So, Luke, of course, you've worn the same number as your brothers at the USA National Development Program, and now you're actually wearing one of Jack's jerseys. What did it mean to pull that sweater over your head?
Yeah, I mean, it's a dream come true. I'm so excited, and I'm really happy right now. So
we could actually, of course, we announced the NHL schedule. We could actually have the first game of the next season in the cul-de-sac here. Devils against Canucks, right? No sense in waiting until February. But could we do that maybe? Do you have some rollerblades we could put on? I mean, you have to kill off a penalty for a while.
I don't think I could take both of them, but yeah, it's I think as a family we're just extremely happy for him, and hopefully these guys will be playing together in the next year or two, and definitely very special, yeah.
And Jack, to know your parents, of course, going coast to coast, now at least having two teams to follow for Jim Frelin, what does this mean?
Yeah, it's gonna make life easier for sure. They won't have to fly to a third city, so it'd be nice. Me and Ty Smith got to get a third room eventually, though, for our another roommate. So, I mean, I'm pumped to have Luke. It's a great pick.
And lastly, more than 11,000 draft picks in the history of the NHL. First time ever, 3 brothers all having gone in the top 10. Quinn, your thoughts on NHL history?
Super special. It's a lot of great league, one of the best leagues in the world, and a lot of great talents come through, and I think you really have to just look at our parents. It's too hard to do. It's not like we're a bunch of specimens. We're 6'6". I mean, me and Jack are 5'10" flat, and so I think they really had to teach us the game, and extremely hard, and a lot of credit to them. And I think it's just this is a big time family night for everyone, and a lot of joy.
Well, 32 teams in the league now. University of Michigan might be number 33, though, with 4 of the top 5 picks, right? Luke, your team this coming season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to come to Michigan and, try to win a national championship, so.
Well, what a great night. Congratulations, guys.
A boy band sitting there, didn't you? Man, that's great. All right, Sabres are up. Got to take a goalie, right, Weeksy? Come on.
Come on now. They're going to need one.
All right, let's find out. Commissioner Gary Bettman. Sabres up again.
What do we got?
For the 14th selection, we return to KeyBank Center in Buffalo, New York, where the Sabres will make their second pick of the first round. Jerry Fortin, Director of Amateur Scouting, will be making the pick.
The Buffalo Sabres are pleased to select from Leksand in the Swedish Hockey League, Isaac Rosen.
Isaac Rosen, Isak Rosin. Take your pick. Tomato, tomato, chicken parm, veal parm. Are you surprised at this pick, Sam?
Well, he could use some chicken parm and some veal parm. He, Coronado, Boucher, guys that I expected to be high risers. Fyodor Svechkov would be the other guy. We haven't seen him picked yet. But there was a lot of talk about Rosen moving up to the draft as we got a lot closer. You're talking about a guy that is a lot like Kent Johnson. This is 156.
Yeah, this is a bummer. I was really hoping that he was going to fall.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I was like, oh, you don't like the player. It's just because we like him that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just putting a video into chat. We did kind of a highlight reel package of him too.
Yeah.
He's very exciting player.
Very exciting.
Yeah, he would be like the ideal pick for the Devils' second first rounder.
Definite top 6 upside.
Yes. Yeah, really
Fast.
Really good shooter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Buffalo did well here.
Yeah, I went to go do just a reel of just his goals, and I liked the other plays so much that it just turned into one of those, highlights, assists, everything. Like just the way he plays is really exciting. Yeah, Buffalo did really well here. Yeah, the Swedes are doing really well so far too. This is good. Strong first round for them. Although I gotta say, still surprised we haven't seen the goalie.
Oh, I gotta say this too. I mean that Luke interview when he mentioned hopefully I get to play with Quinn one day too. Oh man.
So it begins.
The endless trade rumors or trade proposals.
Yeah. It's a pretty funny family.
Next up is Dallas, right?
Yep, Dallas is up next.
Okay. They do like their Finnish centers.
Yep. Yeah, I can see that. You thinking like Aatu Ratu?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and to everyone in chat, Isaac Rosen is quite slight, however you want to put it, but he's got some time. And he doesn't play a game that depends on size, although he'll have to contend with that in the NHL, but definitely a finesse player.
Yeah, he's a guy that you let sit for 2-3 years or so.
Yeah,
get stronger, get more confident. Yeah.
Let's put on this Kent Johnson.
Congratulations again on becoming a member of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and enjoy tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Jackie.
6 of the first 13 picks were NCAA players. Previous record was 4. You got some news?
I have some news to break here. It appears that the Dallas Stars are going to be moving down from pick 15 and exchanging with the Detroit Red Wings at 23.
Ooh.
Perhaps they're going to be swapping. So,
goalie?
Could there be a goalie here?
I won't ask for it again.
Yeah, no, keep asking for it. Of course, you got to think that at this point.
You're a good lobbyist.
We're not even on Capitol Hill.
And he's a Swede.
Well set in the event that they go in that direction, or do they go Sebastian Cossa? I'm not sure, but I think it'll be either one of those two.
All right, so Dallas looks like they moved down. Detroit moves up to 15
Looks
to
like
pick next in front of the
pick.
Rangers. I don't think would have taken a goalie. St. Louis.
So Detroit's on the clock here. Really curious to see. I wonder if this is the goalie thing we talked about. Could definitely see that.
I could see that. Maybe they've seen enough and decided. All right. At the same time, though, I wouldn't see the Rangers. The Rangers are next. They're 16th. I don't see them picking a goalie, but maybe Detroit said, all right, enough. Let's get our guy.
Yeah. Yeah, they tend to be that kind of team these days with Stevie Y. Yeah. Yeah, I'll bet you it's the goalie. If not, like, I'm trying to think, just looking at the list here, like...
Lucius?
Chaz Lucius, for sure.
He's still on the board. I mean, I agree with you. I think it's Wallstedt here, but...
Isn't anyone else that really stands out, other than Fabian Luzell, maybe? Another one of those kind of fringe top 10 guys that's still around. Chaz Lucius, for sure, though. And again, a center who scores just a ton of goals. So I think, though, it's going to be one of those three, I think. Chaz is also in my all-draft name team. Chaz is just next level stuff. All right, I'm going to boost the audio here.
Wallstedt, especially the Swedish goaltender, but some feel Sebastian Cossa at 6'6" with some athleticism is the future, right? You talk about fighting for pucks through screens. He kind of has that game and the athleticism to recover.
And he's gone through some adversity personally as well. And I like when you have to travel and go over a few speed bumps on your path to getting there.
Let's find out what Steve Yzerman's doing with this second round pick, Commissioner Bettman.
Dallas is trading pick number 15 to Detroit for picks number 23, 48, and 138, all in this year's draft. So Dallas sends 15 to Detroit for 23, obviously a first-round pick, 48, second-round pick, and 138. So Detroit, you're now on the clock.
So there it is. So Detroit, the pick isn't quite ready to go, but I imagine it'll be done quickly. When you make a trade like this, Jeff, you know who you're taking, correct?
Yeah, I think they're making the move. They're thinking another team is going to take a guy, and they don't want to take any chance, and they really like somebody. Their room's been pounding the table. And
do you like that return for Dallas? 23, 48, and 138. Is that about standard stuff?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a going rate if you look at over the years. When you go moving up and moving down, it looks like about right.
You go to a familiar dance partner. Jim Nill and Steve Yzerman would have known each other through the Detroit Red Wings organization. But I'm looking at Dallas here and thinking about Jim Nill, Joe McDonnell, and you're thinking about the last two drafts. They've only had 9 total picks. So now they've got to restock the cupboards. They have a pretty good complement right now, but the additional 2 picks.
Yeah, I think we have a couple moments here to jump in, but that is not
a good haul.
Yeah, not a small price.
Yeah.
For that.
That's a good haul.
Yeah. So really curious to see who it is then. I wonder if there is pressure from other teams to jump up here, especially with both goalies still on the board, even if they don't want one of them, if they feel their guy is in danger there.
Because that's 8 spots that they jumped up?
Yep.
Not insignificant. By the way, I have to say, I really like this group. I really like the vibe from the broadcasters here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think I've ever said that, but
yeah. No, it's nice. Yeah.
Also, I mean, I'm glad that he's not with the Rangers anymore, but Gorton knows his stuff with the draft.
Oh, 100%.
So
yeah.
He's a very good person to give insight there. But
yeah, Kevin Weeks is really, really solid in terms of his reporting lately too. Friedman, I think, has been killing it tonight too. And who is the who spoiled all of the expansion draft?
Sarah Valley.
That's it. I was trying to come up with that name too.
Fantastic work by his part, but like, wow. Yeah.
I'm sure he made a few enemies that day.
Oh, definitely. So after this, Detroit is picking again, but they don't have any more first-round picks. Columbus has 2 more first-round picks?
Yeah, Columbus has 2 more.
Yeah. And the Devils have 1 more.
Yeah, Victor had a question of just about the Devils trading. I think we both feel pretty strongly that they're not going to be picking at, was it 29?
Correct. We both feel that way. Yeah.
But at a certain point, you run out of time. But
yeah,
actually, here we go. Here's Detroit.
Okay.
Detroit Red Wings will make the second pick for the first round for the Detroit Red Wings. Steve?
With the 15th pick, Detroit selects from the Western Hockey League's Edmonton Oil Kings, Sebastian Cossa.
As his goalie, 17-1-1, 941 save percentage in the shortened season last year for Sebastian Cossa. 6'6" and athletic, Sam.
You know, there's been a lot of things that this young man has had to go through in this rise to prominence, and he's a good community guy. The Hockey Gives Blood program, and he's ambassador there. But you think about some of the personal adversity where the fires in Fort McMurray displaced the family for 3 months. They get back into their house. They got to evacuate again because of the floods. They are able to stay with some family in Calgary. But the start of this guy's career, he had to battle 2 veterans to get the net. He did it. They ended up moving one.
That's a big move.
Yeah. I mean, we heard rumblings, whatnot, that Cossa would be the first goalie taken. Those always seemed more as like speculations than anything, random conjectures. I still would have picked Wallstedt before Cossa, but they're both going to be good very good goaltenders, but this was a bit of a surprise, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's definitely not unheard of. Yeah, like you said, there were some teams that reportedly had Koza higher than Wallstat. Part of that, like, it might seem strange just because Wallstat has been, well covered, but Koza has the size. He's very technically sound and just a ridiculous resume too. He's only lost 7 league games in the past 2 years.
Wow.
Which is just incredible. Regular season. But the streak he's been on, like, the consistency is pretty incredible. Now, Edmonton is a really stacked junior team, but he's one of the reasons why they're stacked. So, yeah, really solid goalie.
And my mistake. I said Columbus had 2 more first-round picks. I was mistaken. They sent 1 to Chicago for the Jones trade. So thank you, Justin, for clearing that up. Yeah, I mean, it's a good pick. It's a good pick.
Mm-hmm.
Goalies, we know the goalies situation is kind of a toss-up.
Yeah, it's trickier to project for sure, and you see goalies picked high that don't work out. Recently, it seemed to be pretty good, just because Askarov is supposed to be one of the best goalie prospects in the past however many years, like, you name it.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't played in the NHL quite yet, but he seems to be progressing really nicely. Spencer Knight, quite a few examples.
Dallas has quite a few picks in this draft. They're going to be busy tomorrow.
Yeah. And we were right about the goalie thing. A team in the 20s jumping up if the goalies fall.
So who do the Rangers pick here? They need centers.
I'll bet you they Chaz Lucius.
Lucius, okay, yeah. I mean, they've been linked to Svechkov.
Oh, that's fair too. Yeah.
That's just because I don't know. I think they have that Russian. They've had Russians in their league. What am I saying here? They've had a good number of Russians come through their system.
Yeah, they must really trust their Russian scouts.
Mm-hmm.
Svechkov being the much more two-way defensively responsible center.
Yeah.
He's probably the best defensive center in the draft. Yeah. Skates pretty well, really competitive. But Chaz Lucius, on the other hand, is pure offense, basically. Really good goal scorer, but did come back from a pretty nasty injury this season. So I guess, you could be worried about that. But if they're going for, offensive potential, Lucius is probably the next center. But Svechkov, that's a good point. Good option.
Yeah.
Past that, you're getting into like the Bourgault or Balduc range of centers, which seems a bit lower than the other two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like Balduc is a good pick. I think he would top out as like a second line center, to be quite honest. Kind of one of those like jack of all trades, master of none type players.
Mm-hmm.
Good to have in your top 6.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, you need to have them, actually, yeah. Yep. Question in the chat. Who picks Brendan Othman? I honestly have no idea. He's one of those OHL kids that had a bit of an interesting year, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I had him, just again, this a nonsense mock draft, but I had him going to Nashville at their they picked 19th, right?
Yes, 19th. Yeah, I could see that. He gives off that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I kind of get like a Tomasino vibe.
Yeah, that's fair.
A little bit.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Gotta say, the further we get, the more perplexed I am about Wallstedt.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess that's the thing where he's so highly ranked by a lot of teams, but all it takes is for one thing to change, And for consecutive teams to have just one person ahead of him on their board, and it just kind of cascades like that. But I would have thought, top 15 for sure. Just based on what we were hearing beforehand.
I'm just curious too. Like, Othman is a winger, right? You don't see him as a center long term.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Although who knows? I mean, the Rangers' center situation could be very different.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you just need it. All right. Here we go.
Selection in the 2021 NHL Draft will be made from the MSG Training Center in Westchester, New York, by New York Rangers President and General Manager Chris Drury. Chris?
The New York Rangers are proud to select from the Flint Firebirds, Brennan Othman.
The left winger is gone. Sam, what can you tell Ranger fans about Brennan Othman?
They're going to be really happy about him because he plays with a little bit of edge. And at times you think that he's always been the sidecar. He was to Shane Wright with the Don Mills team, and then he goes to the under-18s. You got Wright and Bedard, they're doing their thing over there. And Othman's just quietly going about his business. And he really grew on Coach Dave.
Well, we didn't have to wait long to figure out who's going to take off.
This is why I try not to really like prospects, It's like they always end up getting picked by the Rangers. Like Niels Lundqvist, Keandre Miller,
Braden Schneider,
Matt Jones, Braden Schneider, Joey Keane. Good pick.
Yeah, solid pick for them.
If there are any Rangers fans that have wandered into this,
this is a safe space.
Yeah,
we're fine.
Yeah. No, Othman is what you're gonna get is like I think it would be a good comparison to compare him to like a Zachary Leroux of this draft, except less rambunctious. Like somebody that scores goals, but can really, really get under your opponent's skin.
Yep, that's a great way to put it, I think. Yeah, it brings a lot of strength and energy. Not looking forward to for the Devils playing him 8 times a year or whatever it is here. Just putting in the chat a link to a shift by shift of Othman.
I'm kind of bummed that they aren't announcing them from the teams that they actually played for this season.
Right, yeah.
That would have been really cool.
Is that for the sake of pronunciation? In some cases?
Some of them, but like EHC Olton.
Yeah, that's doable for sure. It's the Novozamski, or, Brant Clark in Slovakia, that I could see tripping a few people up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, this is a good pick by them. He was ranked 27th on my board, but that group of 16 to 30 isn't, the difference isn't all that big for me.
Yeah. And for anybody wondering, Othman was 16th on Bob McKenzie's TSN board.
Nice. He's bang on.
It's definitely interesting. I don't want to talk too much just in case there's a pick, but Rangers are very well set on the wing.
Yes.
So, I don't know. Part of me, maybe the part that wants chaos, is thinking that they could be considering moving one of their young wingers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That is pure nonsense speculation, but since they've been linked to Eichel so much, they're going to have to give up a good amount.
That's fair. Yeah. That's a good point. Doesn't Fedor Svechkov feel a bit like a St. Louis Blue?
Yeah.
It's kind of defensively minded, really hardworking. I don't know why the term blue collar is popping up in my head, but that sort of feeling. He's an amazing player, but I feel like the Blues kind of have that mold.
Yeah, I could see that. Or do you think they try and pick somebody that can try and replace the goals that Tarasenko might not give them
That's
anymore?
fair. That's some suggestions. Fabian Lysell.
Yeah. I do like Francesco Pinelli.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Craig Berube's still the head coach there. Oh, all right. Sorry, pick is up.
Oh.
St. Louis selects from Rimouski, Zachary Bolduc.
Had all the hats there just in case you could pick up the blue note. Still, I think the best logo in all of sports. I love the blue note.
Sweet.
This guy's a real slippery player. Jeff, a lot of skill that Doug Armstrong and his staff decided to go with.
Yeah, beautiful skater, lots of talent here. He played with Lafreniere. Scored 30 goals as a 16-year-old. So he's been on the map a little bit, but maybe a little bit undersized. But as he gets a little bigger and stronger, he's got all kinds of talent. He could be a real top 6 player for somebody.
I thought it was really